The small town of Kunlun had been thriving recently, with its people living carefree and fearless lives. But one fateful night, disaster struck. A young man was strolling through the city, completely absorbed in his phone, lost in thought. He was chatting about a video he had just completed, admiring how handsome he looked in it. Little did he know, this same handsome guy was about to face a life-or-death situation. Excitement washed over him as he realized his video had gone viral, and he anticipated lucrative ad offers rolling in. Lost in his excitement, the cheerful fellow failed to notice as he stepped onto the busy road where cars were speeding by. Everything happened in an instant. One moment he was surrounded by the noise of the city, and the next he found himself in an empty void, facing only a girl seated at a table. Confused, the guy asked her, "Did I die?" The girl, visibly irritated, confirmed it, grumbling that his untimely demise had occurred right at the end of her workday. Still, she explained that since his video had brought joy to countless people, his merits had exceeded the norm. As a result, he was being given a rare opportunity, a chance to be reborn in another world. The guy heard this and asked if he could make a choice. However, the girl firmly told him no, instructing him to press the button on the randomizer instead. Without giving another thought, the guy quickly pressed the randomizer with his index finger. The device revealed that he would become the strongest master in the martial arts world, Demon Lord Ziwei. Eyes wide with surprise, the guy wondered aloud if he was incredibly lucky. The girl responded curtly, saying that since he already had his answer, he should hurry up and proceed. She wanted to finish her work quickly and saw no reason to waste any more time. With gleaming, excited eyes, the guy walked toward the door, standing in the empty void, and shouted enthusiastically that he was now a martial artist. The girl was relieved to be rid of him. After tidying up, she muttered to herself that earlier someone had mentioned something about needing to fix a car, but the rest of the text was incomplete and unclear. Opening his eyes, the guy found himself in a forest drenched in heavy rain. His first thought was confusion. Where had he ended up? But then it hit him. He had been reborn. In this world, his name was Li Ziwei, and his status was none other than the strongest master of the martial arts world. Overwhelmed with joy, he clenched his fist and exclaimed that he had been reborn as the greatest martial artist, the demon Lord Ziwei. Wei glanced at his clothes and muttered that this man looked like a ragamuffin. However, his attention quickly shifted when he noticed something under his feet, a strange badge. Curious, he asked aloud what it could be. Before he could investigate further, he raised his eyes and spotted 3 figures approaching in his direction. One of them paused, looking around suspiciously, and remarked that it was odd. The aura of the demon Lord Ziwei seemed to linger nearby, yet there was no trace of him. Unaware of the impending trouble, Wei impulsively called out to them, asking if he was the person they were searching for. The man studied him closely and immediately spotted the demonic sect insignia in the guy's hands. It had to be him. With expressions of disbelief, they began shouting that it was incredible. He had even altered his appearance. In the past, he had exuded an unmatched, bloodthirsty aura, cruel and merciless. Countless people had fallen victim to his techniques. They had heard rumors about him. He had been poisoned by millipede venom, which had weakened him significantly compared to his former self. Wei listened intently, shocked to hear that he had once been poisoned with such venom. No wonder he had chosen to disguise himself as an ordinary person. Without hesitation, the men drew their swords and declared that they would take his head today. Wei smirked at them and asked if they were truly serious. What made them think that just because there were 3 of them, they stood a chance against him? Wei realized that, despite the poison's lingering effects, he was still regarded as the strongest master in this world. But in truth, only he knew that he was merely an ordinary human with no real abilities. The men quickly concluded that in such a situation, they had no choice but to use their ultimate technique. Uniting their strength, the trio summoned the creation of the golden holy sword. The energy surged upward into the sky. Wei glanced at them and mocked, asking if they truly believed such a feeble trick could work on him. In that moment, Wei's thoughts turned to gold. Though he still didn't know how to properly wield this body's techniques, one thing was certain. He was undeniably handsome now. Suddenly, he pointed his finger toward the men, unleashing a massive surge of energy that coursed through them, frying them to the bone. He understood then that he simply had to rely on the muscle memory of this body. Opening one eye to glance at the defeated men, Wei was utterly astonished. He glanced at the remains of the three martial artists and exclaimed that they had been obliterated in an instant. Such was the power of the greatest master in this world. He immediately looked down at his hands, muttering how unbelievably incredible it all was. The next morning, he arrived at a bustling city called Sangyu. Without a trace of fear, he strolled through the main street, taking in the lively scene around him. He couldn't help but ask aloud, "Is this really a martial arts world?" Suddenly, the little girl tugged at her mother's sleeve and asked, "Isn't that the demon Lord Wei?" Upon hearing those words, Wei instantly realized he had been recognized. A crowd quickly formed around him, and people began to criticize and accuse him. But Wei's mind raced. How could this be? Hadn't he changed his appearance? He reminded himself to stay calm, given the sheer number of people surrounding him. Glancing at a nearby wall, he saw a wanted poster for the demon Lord Wei, described as a notorious killer. However, Wei paused when he noticed the portrait on the poster. Fortunately, his current appearance was different enough from the image depicted. A boy suddenly approached him and asked, "Are you Wei? What are you doing here?" Wei turned around and followed the boy into the pub. The boy muttered that he hadn't expected to be so unlucky. Not only had he fallen off a cliff, but he'd also lost his memory. Moreover, he'd been missing for 2 days, and everyone assumed he had returned to his hometown. As they walked further, the boy explained that this was his room and that he should first change into clean clothes, as the steward was already losing patience. Wei picked up some books from his stall and asked, "Is this his room?" He quickly deduced that it must belong to his fake identity. Perhaps this was part of the 36 technique of cheating by pretending to be weak. Perfect. Now all he needed to do was get into character as quickly as possible. Afterward, he stepped outside and grabbed a chicken. At the same time, he held a knife in his hands, intending to cut its head off. But just then, a man approached and demanded, "What's going on?" The man stood in front of Wei and demanded to know what the issue was. Had he become so brain-damaged that he couldn't even slaughter a chicken? Upon hearing the words "slaughter a chicken," Wei's expression turned angry, though he inwardly thought it was better to mask his bloodthirsty aura this way. The man grew increasingly irritated and snapped, asking Wei why he was procrastinating. He threatened to inform the boss to dock his pay for the month because of this incompetence. What kind of misfortune had befallen him? First, Wei went missing from work, and now he couldn't even perform such a simple task. What else could someone like him possibly do besides behead chickens? Not only that, but he couldn't even pluck them properly. The man complained that Wei was always running around showing off his useless techniques. Was that all he was capable of? Fed up, the man bluntly remarked that there was no point in learning martial arts if this was the result. After all, even a pig could handle basic moves. But Wei ignored him entirely, focusing instead on attempting to cut off the chicken's head. The man repeated his question, shouting, "Is he deaf? Let him turn around. He's being spoken to." But Wei ignored him, raising his knife and swiftly cutting off the chicken's head. Wei glanced at the man with an odd expression and asked, "What's the matter? Did you have something else to say?" Just a few hours earlier, Wei had been a completely different person, mercilessly killing everyone in his path and screaming that they were nothing but insects. Amidst the chaos, a surviving girl had hidden behind the corpses, whispering that reinforcements would arrive soon. Today, she vowed, they must stop the demon Lord Wei. But when Wei saw them, he used his token of authority to eliminate anyone who opposed him. The girl quickly alerted the others, declaring, "This case is trashy. Look, he's holding the plaque of the demonic sect. He's going to order his subordinates to attack us." Without hesitation, Wei gave the command to attack. His movements were lightning fast as he shouted for them to try and stop him. Wei was standing on a mountain where Dabin was buried, reflecting that the visitor had even gnawed on her bones. He then muttered to himself, asking her to promise in her next life not to be reincarnated as a chicken. But just as suddenly, he declared that he needed to return to work. However, at that exact moment, an unexpected attack came from the western route. Caught off guard, Wei found himself tumbling off the cliff. As he plummeted, he heard a voice call out, asking if the wind was particularly strong today. In that instant, the real owner of the body vanished. The man had sacrificed his life to intercept the demon sect's message. Yet, in a moment of desperation, he was unceremoniously thrown off the mountain. The observer was utterly astonished, thinking to himself, what happened to this guy? He looked like a frightened kitten just moments ago. The man immediately told him that he's been working here for years. And he's snapping at him? Does he even realize who's standing in front of him? And now he's going to use him for meat instead of this chicken. Wei immediately saw that this cook was in good shape, even though he looked like a complete fool. Although he could hardly be called a fighter. The man immediately picked up the frozen fish and smacked the guy in the face with a swing, telling him not to use that look anymore. Wei immediately picked up a knife and decided to test how strong Mr. Chef was himself. The cook asked the guy what he was doing with the cleaver. As he approached the blow, he stepped on the blood and slipped. Wei used this moment and stood in front of his face with his intimidating red eyes. Wei asked him if he knew what his favorite dish was. First, you cut the meat into thin plates. Then you wrap them in a thin layer of starch. Then you add spices, marinate them, and finally fry them on a slow flame. And now the gourmet dish is ready. And then Wei said that pork is usually used for this dish. Had the cook ever tasted such a thing, he asked. The cook was very frightened and started screaming at the top of his voice. Wei covered his ears immediately and said that it was loud. In fact, he hadn't even done anything and he was already crying. It would probably be a disgrace to their great demonic sect if he killed such a pathetic guy. Wei said it was more boring than he thought it would be. But the cook turned around with his face on the floor and said that he only had muscle. The meat would turn out very tough. And it didn't taste good at all. Wei suddenly heard someone approaching. Turning around, he saw the guys and asked, "What are they frozen? Is something wrong?" The boys replied that they would probably go, and they still had a lot of things to do. Wei sighed and asked, "Why is everyone here so ugly and submissive?" But it didn't matter, though, because submissive would do just as well. Suddenly, he was a little distracted and came to his senses after the boy tugged at his belt. After a day of work, Wei immediately went to the kindling room. He plopped down on the sofa and said in a joyful voice that he had finally moved all his things here. He thought that he would have to start studying all sorts of cultivation techniques and figure out how the demonic sect was doing. Of course it will be hard, but who said the life of the strongest master in the world could be easy? And besides, he met a promising boy today. One should start practicing martial arts from childhood. He realized that if he started learning as a child, he would always be confident in his abilities in the future. He didn't fall asleep and decided to go outside. Wei immediately said that he should eat dinner soon and go talk to that kid. At that time, somewhere beyond the alleys, someone was beating a little boy. But he tolerated everything and took it all on his body. The guy asked him if he's lost his memory, but he feels like he's blatantly lying to him. It was Qian Wujin and is an ordinary servant at the inn. Wujin put his foot down next to his head and told the boy that he knew him well, and they were just right for each other. An orphan and a loser. Wujin asked the boy, why are they going after the cook? Don't they know that he is the brother of their master Zhao? And she would love to see Master Zhao kick their asses when he returns. But no, why not avenge their master's brother himself? And then, when he returns, he will tell him all about it and accept his well-deserved reward for his good deed. Wu Jin couldn't help but laugh and realize to himself that he was a genius. He told the boy that if he didn't want to be trampled into the ground here, let him bring this bastard. Suddenly, he saw a door flying at him. He turned around sharply and dodged the attack. Wei held the bread in his hands and told the boy to shut his mouth, for he had heard enough already. And he apologizes to the boy for being late. But the main character always shows up at the last moment. He immediately pointed his finger at the guy. Wu Jin said, beholding the culprit of the celebration himself. He realized that this was just the perfect chance. Beat him up, and please Master Zhao. And this is a great chance for Wei to teach this guy a lesson and show the young apprentice the power of his master. He's sure the boy will start literally idolizing him when he deals with this idiot. He'll tell the master that he's a role model. Wu Jin told himself that he wouldn't miss this chance and would use it to show his power. Wu Jin told the boy that he had not been taught to respect his elders. If he kneeled down now and begged for forgiveness, he might consider taking pity on him. Wei approached the boy at this time and told him to step aside for now and wait for him on the sidelines. Wu Jin asked the enemy, had he been knocked back along with his memory and self-preservation instinct? How dare he ignore him? Let him not act like he's better than him. And a loser will forever remain a loser. Wu Jin immediately pounced on him with his fists to teach the boy a lesson. But Wei managed to dodge the attack, but immediately grabbed his arm and threw him across himself. Wu Jin was greatly surprised after that and didn't understand how it happened. Wei knocked him to the ground and slowly got up. Wei smiled and said it really works. The hours spent watching self-defense videos were not in vain. He had wanted to test this technique in action for a long time. Although he wouldn't be able to use all sorts of cool techniques of this body for now, but with his current internal spiritual energy, even ordinary kicks and throws become deadly. Wei suddenly switched and said that he couldn't use the full capabilities of this body yet. That's too bad, of course. But if he leaves him alive, his identity may be revealed. And kill him with a simple kick. He's really annoying, that guy. Wu Jin heard everything and thought that his identity might be revealed. He wondered what this guy was talking about, because he could hear his intimidating voice. And suddenly it hit him. He's read about something like this before in a book. And this guy is not what he seems to be. But Wei looked at him and was surprised that the guy managed to stay conscious after his incredible throw. But Wu Jin looked at the guy and had never seen such movements before. He immediately stood up and asked Wei who he was. Wei didn't speak to him and ran toward his enemy and grabbed him by the throat and leaned him against the wall. Wei asked him what he had just said. Let him answer. How did he recognize him? In fact, Wu Jin didn't know who this guy was. Wei thought that although this guy was a complete weakling, he was able to sense his true strength. And on top of that, he was able to experience his throw enhanced with incredible spiritual energy. Wei decided that he would let him go. After loosening his hand, Wu Jin was surprised and thought this guy was a real madman. Wei told the guy that since he had found out about everything, he had a choice. But he didn't talk to him and used a technique to slap him on the back. At the moment of impact, Wu Jin immediately felt his spine crunch. He couldn't hold on and folded up like a box. Wu Jin opened his eyes slowly and saw his late grandmother in front of him. Wei asked him if he wanted to know what it was just now. The technique he used on him is called the bone-crushing palm. And the point of this technique is that after 7 days, his opponent's bones will be nothing but dust. Wu Jin was shocked, and his face was so interested as he asked, his back would turn to dust. Wei asked him at once, was he willing to die such a miserable death? And a great man once said, true enlightenment is defeating death and creating a new future. And so he will give him a choice now. The next morning, there was a girl running around in the forest. She suddenly climbed up a tree and was saying that she was somehow bored. And her father always gives her boring jobs. Yui said her father told her that it's been turbulent here lately and told her to stay home. But what she really knows is that the remnants of the demonic sect are hiding in this neighborhood. Her father thinks she'll get in their way. But they'll see about that. She'll catch all the remaining followers of the demonic sect and bring them to her father. And after that, he would definitely stop underestimating her. But in her hands at this moment, she was holding a portrait of an escaped follower, stolen with great difficulty. But upon revealing it, she said she would see who scared her father so badly that he decided to keep her home. But suddenly she saw that it was a portrait of a girl. She started screaming and asking why this woman's portrait was so different from the usual portraits of criminals. But she wouldn't be surprised if all their guards were exterminated by such a remnant of followers. But all of a sudden, unexpectedly, Yui retracted her gaze in the other direction. She looked into the woods and saw some guy and a little kid walking around, and it seemed very strange to her. The boy asked Brother Wei if it was true. If he learns martial arts, will he stop being bullied? Wei replied that of course. He'd seen for himself how easily he'd gotten a guy he'd put him down. He would even tell him more. If he learned martial arts, the whole world would start to admire him. But though he realized that it was possible that the boy would be hunted, the boy said that her sister had said that if he got a master, he would have to bow to him. The boy couldn't help himself and immediately lowered his head in front of him, and he bowed so much that he hit his head hard. Raising a bump on his forehead, said that he wanted to become stronger and asked the master to train him. But Wu Jin at this time returned to his house and was greeted by the girls. The girl told the young master that he had returned, and they were very happy to see him. She did not keep silent and immediately said that he had arrived just in time. He had received a letter from the capital. Wu Jin was in no mood and asked why he needed to know what was going on in the capital. He doesn't have time for the chatter of those old men. The girl replied that then let him let his maid help him change his clothes and apply a medicinal compress to his back. Wu Jin took off his clothes and threw them directly into her hands. She looked at the clothes and was surprised, for there were handprints of a blow. She started screaming and asked what was it. The girl asked who did it. There's even an imprint of the blow. Even mosquitoes don't dare to bite their young master. Wu Jin told her that there was no need to smear the medicine. Suddenly sitting on the sofa, he thought hard. He remembered that he had been suffering from a piercing pain in his back for years. Even the healers in the capital had given him the runaround. The only way to relieve the pain was with compresses, and this guy got rid of his ailment in a couple of moves. But no one actually dared to treat him harshly. He must have done it on purpose. Either he would join him or he would die in 7 days. Wu Jin thought for a moment and said he needed to talk to him. But Wei was still in the forest at this time and was training the boy. He kept telling him that all he needed was concentration. After all, martial arts teaches not only how to fight, but also the importance of uniting the inner spirit with the outer body. After an hour, Wei was already sweating and said that they had done a great job, and let him practice on his own for now, and let the master think about what exercises would suit him. But Wei reflected that he still hadn't figured out how he could start learning demonic techniques. And that man calling the techniques he had lying around trash didn't sound all that enticing. And besides, if he somehow starts learning demonic techniques, but things didn't work out the way he wanted, he thought, why do all villains always want the whole world to know that they're bloody villains? Can't they just pretend to be the good guys and do their dark deeds behind the cakes? He realized that if they did things this way, he wouldn't have to suffer now. For now, it would be better to focus on techniques for beginners so that his young apprentice would understand everything as well. Wei told the boy to come over. The master would teach him the basics of fist-fighting techniques. Shuai asked with surprise, teach him the basics? And why did the master call him Xiao Shuai? Wei answered him to make the boy remember the first rule, never introduce yourself to strangers by your real name. He was too young to understand it yet. Yui was looking at them the whole time and said that she thought they were some suspicious types, and it turned out to be a couple of idiots. But why are they practicing horse gait in the middle of the night? But she doubts this guy is a martial artist. But never mind, just keep an eye on them to make sure they don't get snatched by the forest wolves. Wei looked at the book and didn't even know what stage the owner of this body had reached. How would he continue to cultivate? Shuai turned to the master and said that he was done. Wei was greatly surprised and asked, so fast? Shuai replied that yes, and immediately asked if he could try it. Wei answered him that of course he could. Shuai stepped aside and took a stand. A force immediately appeared around him and surrounded him. He began to demonstrate his blows, and he succeeded immediately. The first blow was so strong that the trees and birds felt the force of the blow. The wave of power then traveled through the trees and hit the master's house directly. The level of the house immediately decreased to a minimum. Wei looked at it with his mouth open and couldn't believe that his student was up to the task. Wei thought immediately, did the beginner technique he had lying around turn out to be so powerful? He can't even believe it. Wei pretended to be happy for him and told his disciple that he was great. Shuai was happy and said that the master's technique was really something. Wei immediately realized that this was a technique that deserved him to learn it. It was really cool. Wei told him to keep it up. Although he wouldn't become stronger than a master, however, if he tried his best, he could very well become the second strongest in the world. Shuai told the master that he would study hard. He would not be able to let his master down. Yui saw all of this too, and was very surprised. She immediately grabbed her head and thought, what are these two like? Yui followed them and realized that her father was right. Great masters were hard to distinguish from ordinary people. But how could she be so blind when she only saw them as a couple of idiots? At this time, Shuai was shouting to the master that he wanted to move too. Yui realized that this boy's punch was so destructive that it cut down several trees and almost destroyed that hut. So the master of this boy must be even more powerful. Wei answered his apprentice that it was possible, but this hut would be too small for them. Wei didn't notice as he pointed his finger at the shack, and not a second later, there was an explosion. Yui looked at it with surprised eyes and couldn't believe that he had destroyed his own house just because it was too small. Wu Jin came to see the guy at this time too, and was surprised how he destroyed his house with the movement of one finger. Yui noticed him and asked him, where did this guy come from? Wei understood and said that he had to learn to restrain his strength. But Shuai rejoiced and told the master that he was an amazing person. Wei said that was certainly true, but today it seemed like they would have to sleep outside. Suddenly, Wu Jin ran up and hugged his legs, shouting to the master. Wu Jin saw that this guy was an incredibly skilled master. It doesn't matter who he really is. All that mattered was that he was very strong. He destroyed the cabin with a single touch. What stage is he even at? Or maybe he's at the king stage. Or maybe even the saint stage. If he followed him, he would definitely be on the kill list. Wei told him that he would never take a student of that age. Let him go. Wu Jin told the master to forgive him. He was blind before. Didn't he himself say he had only two choices? And he chose to follow him. He'll be useful, he promises. Wei asked, what good is he? Wu Jin replied that he had a lot of money. He could help the master repair his little house. Wei said that there were hundreds of ways to placate a man, but you couldn't take him with money. Wu Jin thought, how much money could an ordinary servant have there? If he didn't stand up to his throw, he wouldn't even think twice. The next morning, Wu Jin brought the master over and asked how he was doing. There is a limit to the money that can be withdrawn from the bank account, so he had to make do with just a modest house. Wei asked, what's the limit of money? A modest house as well. He had a lot of money, so why did he take a job at an inn? Wu Jin replied that it was because the strength of a martial artist in their world comes first. It is said that Yuhang City is ruled by forces from the shadows, and Boss Zhao is on the assassination list. That's why he took a job as a servant in the inn of Boss Zhao, who runs the city from the shadows. What good is money if he has no power? Wei replied that money had power too. Why didn't he just give him some money? Wu Jin understood that money had power. The girl came out with the money and asked, will it be enough? The seller replied that they are so generous. They're going to give them all the documents tomorrow. He can't believe that someone is willing to pay 10 times the price of this shitty hotel. That's a lot of money, and he realized that he had never owned this hotel. The girl approached the young master and said that everything was ready. Wu Jin replied that it turns out the master was right. Money really does have power. But suddenly, her servant ran beside him and entered the room. Wei said, it turns out that this Yuhang city is located in the country of Yahazu. Next to it is the Gusu state, and further away is the Central Plain. He now realized that his new apprentice assassin Matt had actually bought out this inn, so it would be easier for them to build up the force now. But suddenly someone knocked. A girl immediately came in and said that she was the guardian of the Iron Gate, Xiaoyu. And could she talk to him? Out to talk, a guy disguised as a girl came over and said, here's their food. And don't let them forget to leave a good review. Seeing this waiter, Wei was just surprised at what he looked like. You told him that this is a new service at the local tea house. Doesn't he like it? Wei replied that the service was certainly good, but not everyone would like it. Yui told him at once that she was proposing to get to the point. You didn't hide it and said that she was the daughter of the head of the Iron Gate sect, and she knows who he is. And if she got it right, he did. Wei thought at once that now he would have to kill her. But Yu continued that he was a mysterious martial artist pretending to be an ordinary mortal, right? Wei replied to her that she must be joking. As she can see for herself, he's an ordinary mortal. Wei realized at this moment that his disguise had almost been figured out again. How'd he even get caught? Apparently, this sect is an Iron Gate organization of the country's government, which meant that they were his enemies. Yui remembered and realized that rightly her father had said, "True masters always remain humble." Yui told him that as he already knew, the demonic sect had been destroyed, but some followers still managed to escape from them. Wei choked up and asked, what did this have to do with him? Yu answered immediately that she had a request for him. Everyone is responsible for the prosperity of their world. The Iron Gate sect is currently short on manpower, and catching criminals is urgent. She'd like to ask him to help her catch the remaining followers of the demonic sect. Wei asked in surprise what. He immediately realized that it was about him, and he doesn't want to be caught. After that, they came to the testing hall. Wei asked, was this where she wanted to bring him? Yu replied that it was right. Wei started to look around and said that the appearance of this place was quite unusual. He even wondered what this exam hall was for. And to think of it, that Wei decided he would now visit the enemy's base. Yui asked him, hadn't he ever passed a skill test before? Yui had forgotten that there was a powerful master standing in front of her. He must have just never cared about such trivialities. She said that their Iron Gate sect had started creating similar testing halls to test the strength of those practicing martial arts. And depending on how the test subject performed, their Iron Gate sect would give him a jade plaque. And each rank has a different color. Her jade tablet is green, which means she's a mid-stage practitioner. Wei took the plaque in his hands and asked, what about the martial spirit? What color plaque is given to a master of this level? Yui replied that she didn't know. And to be honest, no one knows that. To date, there was no one who had reached the martial spirit stage. But however, saying that to those who have reached such a level, a heavenly ladder is opened, leading that master to another world. Wei thought that since he didn't know how strong the previous owner of this body was, it would be worth it to take this test. However, the problem is that he is currently being watched by one of the enemy Iron Gate sect. Yui grabbed his hand and asked, what is there to think about? It's time to go. She assures him it will only do him good. Yui realized that she simply had to recruit this guy. If he joined the Iron Gate sect, they wouldn't have to worry about the escaped demonic sect anymore. Upon arriving at the ball, Yui began to shout and ask how was this possible? Had the balloon become transparent? It's not even white, transparent meaning there isn't even a martial arts foundation. Wei looked at it and thought, how is there no martial arts foundation? And it seems that the original owner of the body was able to hide his real strength even in front of this strange ball. How far-sighted. This guy really deserves the title of the strongest in the world. And now this means nothing to him. All he needs to know is that the owner of this body was the world's strongest martial artist. But Yui also sensed that something was wrong here. Ever since the foundation of the test hall, the orb had never been mistaken about the true strength of the practice. However, she had seen the power of this master and his disciple with her own eyes. Why then did the orb remain transparent? Suddenly, she remembered her father telling her that learning martial arts was like gradually realizing the Tao. And the great truth is that the beginning of all things is at the same time the end. That is why the highest realization of the Tao comes only after the practitioner returns to where he or she started. Yui recalled the words and repeated that the practitioner would return to where he started. And so, this master had reached the highest realization of the Tao. Turning around, Yui saw that the master had already left. She went outside and asked where he had gone. But suddenly the father came in and asked his daughter what she was doing here. Immediately afterward, they went to the father's study. The father listened to his daughter and started yelling, "What nonsense!" He can't even believe that she thought of stealing the portrait of an escaped follower of a demonic sect. How would he explain to the other masters that his own daughter had done it? He must have spoiled her. Yui told her father that she just wanted to help. Her father asked her what she could do to help. And for this portrait, Their sect had given a lot of money to an artist who had been doing this for years. Father Yu was the head of the Iron Gate sect, and everyone called him Wu Sheng. He opened it and said that it was just a portrait. What could be wrong with it? Sheng calmed down and told his daughter that he would confiscate it from her. He replied to her father that although they had destroyed the demonic sect, the founder Wei himself and many of his other followers were still at large. If they let them gather their forces again, it would be a disaster. Sheng said that it has nothing to do with her. All those who manage to escape are the strongest followers of the demonic sect, and the power of Lord Wei himself and this woman in the portrait is not something to be taken lightly. And at the moment, the demonic sect has been destroyed, so they shouldn't be in a hurry. They need to think this through. You asked, what if a martial spirit stage master showed up? Sheng asked his daughter, what? You said, what if a martial spirit stage master joined their sect? What would happen then? The next day in training, Wei told his students that the way of the sword, hand-to-hand combat, heart sutra, inner chi, and concealed weapons. And this magic talisman hides so many high-end techniques of the demonic sect. The former owner of this body truly deserves the title of the strongest in the world. But last time, his student had proven that even beginner techniques could be incredibly powerful. Maybe he should try something different this time, he thought. After thinking it over, he said that's exactly what it was. Shuai asked the master if he had finished already. What would they be practicing today? The same technique as last time? Wei replied that no, they would study something else today. But Yui was on her way to the master with her father at this time, telling her father to believe her for once. And then he'll realize it himself when they come. She's not lying to him. And she personally saw how a small apprentice of this master felled a dozen huge trees with a single blow. Sheng told his daughter that it wasn't that he didn't believe her. It just sounds too crazy. The head thought that a 6-year-old child fell a dozen trees with a single blow, while his foreman destroyed an entire house with a single finger. And if someone had such tremendous strength, their name would have long ago spread throughout Jianghu. Suddenly, Yu stopped abruptly, and Shuai asked her what was wrong. Yui was surprised very much, for she had seen that child's strength develop very quickly. Shuai tried a new technique, and he did very well. A fire spirit appeared above him. Shuai immediately asked, what the hell is going on here? The boy paid no attention to them and continued to study the fire palm technique. Shuai saw the huge and fiery fist in front of him and immediately told his daughter to step back. Shuai immediately started to defend himself and summoned his spirit. Who would stop that child? Yui immediately realized that this was the 9 Bends heart protection formation, and this is the final form of the bronze dome technique. Shuai at this time thought that if he channeled all his spiritual energy into the dome, he would be able to withstand this blow. Suddenly, the boy's palm was stronger, and the dome of protection began to slowly crack. Shuai immediately jumped out and shouted to the master that he had succeeded. But Wu Jin stood by his side this time and asked, are they definitely practicing the same technique? Wei answered him not to despair. Every person has their talents. Perhaps martial arts just wasn't his forte. But in his heart, Wei realized that his disciple really had a promising talent, a true genius in the field of martial arts. Wei immediately thought that since Shuai was able to use the Tathagata's palm, could he also use other high-level techniques? Suddenly looking into the forest, they saw someone fall down. Yu immediately caught her father and asked him if he was okay. Shuai told his daughter that she was scaring him. Wei walked up to the girl and asked who is that lying next to her, and what are they doing here? Wu Jin looked from behind him and felt like he knew this man. Yu replied to the master that it was her father. She'd brought him to meet them, but hadn't expected them to be practicing at this point. He was trying to protect her. Shuai came to his senses and turned to his daughter. Suddenly, he started spitting blood and told his daughter that he was perfectly fine. Yui was startled and asked where he was okay. Shuai apologized and said that he apologizes for coming unannounced and disturbing them, and he hopes they are not offended by them. Shuai realized at this moment that his daughter had told him the truth. This child was incredibly strong. Even with all his strength, he couldn't really stand up to his punch. And looking at the guy, he wondered immediately Why can't he sense a bit of chi in him? And had he really reached the highest point of his cultivation, and they just couldn't feel his spiritual power? Shui said that he had no intention of interrupting them from practicing martial arts, and he's the head of the Iron Gate sect and Yu's father. Wei asked with surprise, the head of the Iron Gate sect? Shui replied that this time he had come along with his daughter. Wei immediately noticed that the head only picked out keywords, and this is the head boss of the enemy forces. Shui said that there are many talented masters residing in the Iron Gate sect, unlike the list of assassins, which is only a list of people whose strength has been recognized by the common people. Being a member of the Iron Gate sect can be equated to a high position in the Imperial Palace, although they cannot act as freely as the tier list assassins, yet they are supported by the Imperial Court itself. Wu Jin listened to the chapter and couldn't believe that he had met such a great man in his lifetime. But Shui was thinking at this moment, why did the master continue to remain silent? Could it be that he said something wrong? And at this moment, he looks like he's really angry. Shui suddenly turned to the master in surprise. Wei asked him what's wrong. The disciple replied that he thought this uncle had gotten sick. Wei looked at the head and thought, why did he get so excited? It's not like they don't know who he really is. Yui also asked her father if he was all right. Wei also saw that in addition, he had already passed his cultivation test. They wouldn't suspect a kid who didn't even have the basics of cultivation. And now it turns out that he can take advantage of the situation and infiltrate the enemy. Shui said that he thought he would die before he became a true martial artist. Wei asked, what do you get? He's the head of the Iron Gate sect, and they're greeting the master. Shui replied, that's right. He is the head of Xia. Once again, he apologizes for interrupting their training. Wei told him that there was no need to apologize. He was just doing a little exercise with his students. And he's not a martial arts master. He's just an ordinary person. Shui said that he apologizes then, and he got it all wrong. What is the young master's name then? The head thought that this powerful master didn't want anyone to spread about his true strength. Now I could see why he was so angry. Wei told Uncle Shui that he could just call him by his first name. Shui replied that he shouldn't be so formal. Let him just call him Brother Xia then. Wei asked how come. He can't treat his elders so impolitely. Shui replied to him that age means nothing. He is sure that he is a great man, so he would feel awkward if he started calling him uncle. Yui looked at this picture and wondered what was even going on here. Shui told the guy that he had heard from his daughter that the new manager of the local hotel turned out to be an unusually nice young man. So he decided to meet him in person. But it turned out that he came at the wrong time and interrupted their training. Wei told the head that he thanked him for such high praise. Shui replied that he was only telling the truth. He was too modest, and now he would like to ask him something. How was this boy able to learn the move he had recently demonstrated? Wei asked the head in surprise. He was talking about that technique? At this time, on the other side, a boy turned to Master Zhu Kuan. He asked him to listen to him and tell him what he had just seen. Kuan replied, boy, that he had seen it too. This was the true manifestation of the Tathagata. Kuan asked the boy. He had wanted to come down from the mountain and see the world for a long time, hadn't he? And have him get his big brother down here now. The boy asked the master what he wanted to say. Kuan replied that the tournament would start soon, and he feels that this time it will be much more entertaining. The boy told the master that he was speaking in riddles again. In the forest, the head and his daughter said goodbye to Master Wei. Wei said goodbye to them and realized it wasn't easy to hint people to leave. And he gave him no full version of the technique, so if he wanted to, he could figure it out himself. Suddenly, Shui took the master's hand. Wei asked the boy what's wrong. Shui was upset and asked the master, did she give him trouble? Wei replied to the boy that no, it wasn't his fault at all. He was the one who didn't check the neighborhood. And besides, that grandfather didn't seem to have any idea of his true identity at all. As long as he kept a low profile, there was nothing to worry about. Wei told the boy that he could rest for now, and he himself would go for a short walk. But he saw that Xiao Shuai's talent was simply incredible. He mastered one technique after another without much trouble. It would be hard to keep him in the shadows. Shui went to rest and was saying that the master was so kind to him. She should work even harder. Wei went blank saying that he didn't know how destructive the technique would be if he used it himself. But it was worth a try. Suddenly, all of a sudden, Wei looked up at the mountain and heard that someone was there and must be watching him. A girl came out from behind a rock and spoke of how this was possible. She hadn't had time to heal her wounds enough, and they had already found her somehow. The girl was very strong and suddenly released her energy and directed it at the rock. But she realized that she couldn't die here. After all, her master, he was still waiting for her. Suddenly, she started spitting blood because her body was wounded from the inside out. She knew she couldn't lose consciousness right now. She had to gather all the spiritual energy she had left. And before she passed out, she smelled a familiar odor. Wei went up to her and asked if she was all right, but the girl had no time to answer and closed her eyes. Wei did not leave her to the forest and brought her home. He then proceeded to treat her and stop her bleeding. In the morning, he sat up and drank some water after a rough night. Wei said it had been a hard night, but he had made it through. Luckily, he had watched a whole bunch of science videos, so he already knew what to do in these situations. Suddenly, the girl started talking and turning to her master. Wei realized that she was in so much pain, and yet she still kept thinking about her master. But the time passed so quickly that the servant came to the master and asked if he was awake. Wei opened the door and asked what was wrong. The servant replied that a certain mistress said she wanted to talk to him. Wei asked what other mistress? Immediately, Yui came out from around the corner and said hello to him. Wei asked the lady why she was here. Yui replied that his father asked him to give him this gift. Wei looked at it and asked, "What the hell is this?" He was so curious that he started to open the bag right away. But you stopped him and told him not to open it right there. But it was too late, for Wei opened it, and immediately the sack burst open. It was not an easy sack to open, and immediately a pile of scrolls and books piled up on top of it. Wei came out of the pile and said he almost died. So it was a space bag? He started looking and asked what it was. Yui replied that honestly, all of it. And suddenly she remembered her father saying that he never would have thought that there was such a powerful technique in the world. Hurry up and let her open their treasury. Mr. Wei must be thanked properly, and she will personally present him with their gift. You told the master that these were all the possible pills, techniques, and weapons of their sect. Father let her bring everything to him that was in his treasury for him to choose a worthwhile gift himself. Suddenly, she remembered and said that she had almost forgotten about that scroll. Her father had told her that the master's and was the biggest in Yuhang, so he must have many visitors. They're runaway followers of the demonic sect. If he sees anyone like them, have him report them to the Iron Gate sect. There is a high reward for each of them. Wei looked and realized that his luck had smiled on him again. They had sent him a list of his followers themselves. For example, this girl said to you, and don't let him look at her innocent appearance. In fact, she is a real killing tool that was personally created by the demon Lord Wei. She had once destroyed 3 small sects that dared to rebel against her lord in just one night. And she had certainly heard that she was hiding somewhere in the vicinity of Yuhang, so their sect was a bit worried about it. Wei took a good look and realized that this was the same girl he had stumbled upon yesterday. Yui saw the master's face and asked, "What's wrong?" Let him not be afraid, she thought. Right now, the girl won't pull something like this. Suddenly, Yui leaned against him and started sniffing his clothes, for she sensed something. Yui asked him why he smelled blood. Is he injured? Or is someone else injured? Wei thought immediately. How did she realize that he smells like blood? Does she have a dog nose? But Yui didn't stop there and looked towards the room and realized that there was a blood stench coming from there as well. Wei stood in front of the door and said it was his bedroom. She can't go in there. Yui asked him why he was so agitated. Now, she was even more curious. Yui opened the door and was saying that she was sure his sleeping room was now covered in blood. Wei was scared and realized that she was about to see everything. Yui looked and, finding the clothes, said that it was just as she thought. His bed is full of blood. He should have said he was injured right away. Wei looked at her and wondered where she had disappeared to. She must have heard the noise at the door and ducked out. Wei told her she had it all wrong. It wasn't his blood. He had come across an injured kitten on the hill yesterday and decided to take it with him. After treating all the wounds, he fell asleep immediately and then suddenly disappeared as well. But at this moment, Wei couldn't believe that he had accidentally stumbled upon a follower of the former master of this body. Yui asked in surprise, a kitten? But they hardly anyone keeps cats in their city. Perhaps it was brought by a disciple of the Wongu Palace. It's a pity he ran away. Wongu Palace would have thanked him very generously for his return. Wei asked in surprise, Wongu Palace? Yui replied that yes. The Sword Path tournament is coming up, so the disciples of the Wongu Palace have come to Yuhan. And cats are their sacred animals, so the followers of Wongu often take cats or cats with them. And she also forgot to warn that Yuhan had been chosen as one of the arenas for this year's tournament, so it would be quite lively for a while. And let the master not forget the list of fugitives he gave him. He'll have a lot of guests soon, so a couple of them might drop by. Wei knew after hearing about the Wongu Palace that they had poisoned the previous owner of this body with millipede poison. Wei asked Madam, is it still possible to sign up for this tournament? You replied that of course you can. Does he want to sign up a student? Wei replied that yes, he would, even though he is very young, but it will be good for him to get some real experience. Yui told him that he was a good master. Wei replied that actually Shuai is actually a very talented kid himself. He's just supporting him. Wei realized that it would be too suspicious if a master of comparable strength to him immediately appeared just after the demon Lord Wei disappeared. And so he will simply massacre them by Shuai's hands, while he himself watches from the shadows. He can't miss such a perfect opportunity for revenge. As for his runaway followers, the girl came down and, taking his clothes, said she believed she couldn't be wrong. And this is the scent of his master, the Demon Lord. The Sword Path Tournament is a competition among sword masters that was jointly established by the three great sections. However, the sword soon ceased to be the main attribute of the tournament. Masters of other martial arts also began to participate, as the winner was rewarded with magnificent pills, artifacts, and so on. The winner would not only make himself known to the entire Jianghu, but would have the opportunity to contact the three great sects and climb to the top of this world. And so for many martial artists, participating and winning this tournament has become a lifelong goal. And of course, there are some particularly talented practitioners among the participants. Wu Jin told the master that he too wanted to participate in the tournament. Wei answered him that it wasn't that he didn't want to take him along at all. It's that he needs someone to have his back. He's perfect for that role because he trusts him. And when he and Shuai went to the tournament, the inn would be left to him. Wu Jin told the master that he would wait for them here and look after the inn. As Wei left, he thought, why did that sound strange coming out of his mouth? Before the tournaments, a lot of people gathered and slowly walked into the arena. One of the guys was pushing and asked, what is this guy doing standing in the middle of the road? He sees that he hasn't gotten all his license plates yet. Let him get out of the way immediately. And where he's drooling and staring. When he came to his senses, he turned around and saw the guy who was covered in gold. They looked at them and marveled and evaluated their equipment time after time and how much it might cost. Shuai asked the master why everyone was looking at them like that. He didn't realize yet that he had a Qianquan protective plate on his shoulders and it cost 38,880 silver. Wei looked at himself and realized what it was like to be in a god's suit. Envious looks flying in from everywhere. It would be a little hard to walk around in it, and he'd better take it off for now. But in the moment, he felt something was wrong. This tournament is really so prestigious. It's just old people and sick people. Suddenly, someone called him little brother and said that he was apparently participating in the tournament for the first time, and he couldn't use all those treasures. So why don't he give it to him out of the kindness of his heart? Wei replied that it was a gift from his disciple as a token of appreciation to his master. He couldn't throw away gifts, could he? The guy asked him, did he say no? Is he trying to humiliate him? Wei didn't pay attention to him and saw someone approaching. Looking closer, he saw that the girl was handing out scrolls and handing one to each of them. Wei said that it looked like the tournament was about to start and immediately said goodbye to his uncle. Wei realized that this big guy looked like a supporting character and thought he was out at the first stage of the tournament, and it was better to just ignore it and focus on his goal. The girl said that it seems that everyone got their assignments, The first stage of the tournament will last 12 hours and will start in half an hour. And she wishes everyone good luck. Suddenly, Wei told them to stop. He said, "This is a martial arts masters tournament. At what the hell are they being forced to pick herbs?" And now he feels like an employee who was hired for nothing. And he wouldn't have been able to find a blade of grass, even if he had pictures of it. And it's a shame, but he feels like he's going to have to drop out. When they arrived in the forest, they sat down to rest. And having made a fire, they did not even realize that they were being watched. At this time, from the bushes, a guy was telling the boss that they'd been watching this scum for half a day. Maybe they'll get down to business. And it's not even like he's some kind of master. Probably just an idiot who came to see the real masters fight. The boy also replied that he agreed with his friend. And these guys aren't clever enough to show up in the square and treasure with a child. One punch would be enough for him. The boss told them that if they sold all his stuff, they'd make more money than they could make in 20 years on their orders. He also noticed his dimensional bag. There must be even more treasures in there. The boss decided to act and ordered his men to capture him immediately. But it was over very quickly. Wei had set a trap for them to fall for. After tying them all up, the boss asked, "What is this? Who dared to interfere with his plans?" Wei immediately lifted them up with their feet up. Wei said that as he suspected, they're just a bunch of minor characters who don't stick around for long. Wei used spider nets that cost 25,688 silver. And now he feels like a real Spider-Man. Wei told them they didn't think he was a complete moron, did they? And from the beginning, he purposely flaunted the treasure in plain sight. He pretended to be a rich kid who thought he was a martial artist. He knew that some idiots would fall for his treasure. And he set all up on purpose. Now he understands why villains like to manipulate people. It feels incredible, and it's time for them to get down to business. And to be honest, he wasn't particularly familiar with the area. He didn't want to make light of it for a while, but he was left with no choice. Wei asked the guys, they're going to help him with some stuff, right? Well, they don't even have a choice. You told Palace Saint Wongu Chinchio that it was surprising that she was the one assigned to lead the tournament. Chinchio replied that there was nothing that could be done. No one ever knows what is on the Emperor's mind, and asked if her father hadn't told her that. Yui replied that he hadn't told her anything. They hadn't spoken at all lately. All he does now is practicing. He doesn't even leave his room. Chinchio asked, is he practicing? But Uncle Xia. After all, Uncle Xia had never been able to break through to the Saint Warrior stage, even though he had long since mastered the 9 bends heart defense technique perfectly. When stagnation appears at this level of cultivation, it becomes incredibly difficult to break through to the next stage. Usually masters don't manage to break through in the rest of their lives either. So she better talk him out of it. Yui told her that she knew her father. No one could change his mind. It's definitely not something she can do. It's better to just forget about it. Suddenly, she remembered and said that she wanted to tell her that she had recently met a concealing master. Chinchio asked, did she have her eye on some man of unknown origin again? Does she know what sect he is from? Who his teacher is? Where is he from? Yui replied that her face was too scary right now. And don't let her worry. Her father had already sent something to get information about this master. Plus, this craftsman is very fond of small animals, and even took in an orphan child. That's how generous he is. He is without a doubt a great man. At this time, Wei took control of the other guys and acted through them. The guy handed him an herb. Wei took it in his hands and thought, is this the black ginseng? Somehow it didn't look at all like the one in the painting. The guy thought to himself, Wei Yu's mother was what, brewing black ginseng soup? Just how rich is this guy? And what a waste. Wei said they had done their job, so they could go. The boy asked him if he was just going to let them go. Wei asked what's wrong with that. Does he think he's worthy of a man of his stature to have a man like him smear his hands on them? He told the guy to remember, every life is worth something. It's rude to ask that of a benefactor who decided to save their lives. And since he's already a fellow villain, he'll give them one useful piece of advice. He had made so much worthless cannon fodder that he had learned to dispose of the disposable ones easily. To reach the top, martial arts skill alone is not enough. It is also important to have a head on your shoulders. The guy thought, what other way to get rid of a disposable? He says he easily gets rid of bodies that have already served their time. The guy took his friends and said, "No more questions." And they were on their way out. Wei asked with surprise, "What kind of reaction is that?" The next day, Shuai saw that the master opened his eyes and said that he was awake already. Wei asked, "What time is it?" Shuai asked with surprise, "What time is it?" And probably the master means the time. And he answered the master that it was the hour of the dog. Shuai suddenly handed an apple into the master's hands. Wei asked, "Where did this come from?" The boy replied that he took it from there. When he woke up, this mountain was already here. Wei said, "What a pile," and suggested they put it all in a bag first, and then they'd get as much as they needed. Chinchio was taking herbs and suddenly told the man that this was a failure. "Tell him to hurry up and get out of here, it's disgusting." She told them it didn't make any sense. They would have been better off just ordering a large shipment from the merchants. The girl turned to him and told the lady saint not to talk like that. This year the weather has not been pleasant, so it is not surprising that the crops have suffered a lot. And great sects can't afford to go after unscrupulous merchants who brazenly inflated the price of black ginseng. Chinchio asked, "What?" "I mean, they just wanted a freebie, disguised as nobility. This is disgusting. They also dared to put all this dirty work on them, the Wongu palace. It's akin to a mother putting poison in her daughter's wine." But suddenly, Wei came over and asked, "Is this where I should bring the ginseng?" Chinchio was very tired and thought, "When will this be over already?" Wei said that her assignment was too vague, so he doesn't know whether he brought what he needed. Chinchio thought, "Blurry?" Yes, she was drawing pictures of herbs herself. But suddenly, a bright light appeared in front of her eyes. She immediately stopped talking when she saw what Wei had brought. She realized that it was the highest quality black ginseng, and so much of it. Even if you dug up a whole mountain, you wouldn't find this much. Wei said it told me how much I needed. Let them choose which ones they want. Chinchio was surprised and thought that the guy himself didn't realize what he brought. Wei asked, "What is it? Did he bring the wrong thing?" Chinchio replied that no, it's all that. In fact, a single inferior root would be enough to complete the task. Wei asked, "Why don't they take all of them?" Chinchio thought, "How is everyone? Is he seriously talking right now? Doesn't he realize how valuable they are?" Wei replied that yes, they found them there in the woods. Besides, he didn't like the taste of them anyway, so let them have them. Chinchio couldn't believe that they found such a treasure in the forest, and he doesn't even like the taste of them. What is he even talking about? Suddenly, she remembered that the task of the first stage of the tournament had been intentionally rumored long ago. Therefore, everyone knew that Wongu Palace would be the one to harvest the black ginseng. And this guy probably brought this gift to establish a relationship with the Wongu Palace. That's right. Now she understood everything. And this guy is really generous. And now it's good, and quite enough to contact the Wongu Palace. Chinchio said that in that case, he could address her without any formalities from now on. He had helped her a lot and proved his righteousness. And the Wongu Palace accepts his gift and is willing to have a good relationship with him. She immediately introduced herself to him and asked the guy what his name was. Chinchio was proud with herself, for she had made a brilliant drawing of black ginseng. Wu Jin watched and told the guys that he couldn't believe that he had been invited to the official venue of the sword tournament. He will forever imprint that glorious moment in his heart. He hugged the master and said it was so good that he no longer had to look after the inn, and from now on, he would consider the master his Sunday father. Wei shouted at him to let go of his hand. If he doesn't let go now, he'll go back to guarding the inn. Wu Jin asked, "Is this the official venue of the tournament?" "You couldn't tell from the looks of it." Chinchio replied to him that it was clear, and there are no people here, as this place has long since fallen under the influence of the three great sects. And she'll be honest, the first stage of the tournament is a trap that only a few can overcome. And all the major sects have been sent direct invitations to the tournament. So there were already powerful masters gathered here who didn't have to waste time on the first stage. Even those who pass the first stage don't always make it to the second. If the practitioner is not skilled enough, he is only good enough to be a food delivery boy. Wei said that's how it is. He felt as if he had come into contact with the dark side of the world. Chinchi said it right. Making it all the way to the second stage of the tournament is oh so difficult. However, since he had helped her so much, she would get the last 3 passes for them. Wei replied to Madam that she was so kind. Chinchi said that food and lodging were provided for the duration of the tournament, and she'd better guide them to the inn. Chinchi turned to the boy and said that he must be tired of stomping his feet by now. So she took him in her arms. Wei wondered if this saint could even be trusted. He thought she was too easy to deceive. Seeing the inn, Chinchi said that they had come, and she feels like she needs to give them something. Just don't let them get lost. Immediately afterward, she threw objects into their hands. Wei caught them and asked what they were. Chinchi replied that these are the participants' plates. They'll be needed to check in at the hotel. And this whistle is her gift to him. Let him whistle if he needs help. Then someone from the Wongu palace would definitely help him. Wei asked in surprise, whistle? Chinchi replied that was right. There was only one such whistle, and she had to try her best to get it. So let her not use it for nothing. Wei started blowing and said that he wasn't whistling. Chinchi replied that she had told him not to whistle at him for nothing. Wei looked around and said that this hotel has a pretty good decoration. It looks like a 5-star hotel. Wu Jin asked the master, did he like it that much? Then when he returns, he will hire workers to remodel their inn in a similar style. Wei went up to the host and told him to put them on the list. The host asked how many were there. Wei replied that there were 3. Suddenly, a girl came up to them and told them that she thought they were confused about something. This is not the place to play. She advises them to go back to where they came from. The old man sitting next to her asked the girl, why did she care so much about the affairs of others? What made her think that children couldn't participate in the tournament? Then the same could be said of an ignorant woman like her. The girl got very angry and asked the old man what he said. She was just trying to give some sound advice. The old man told her to clean her ears so that she could hear and perceive everything well. The girl got angry and said that there was no point in talking to a donkey who couldn't tell good intentions from bad ones. The old man told Wei to ignore them. In a world where strength has always been respected, there is no distinction between man, woman, or child. They really thought some ordinary kid could get in here. Anyone here must be considered an equal, or they will be sorry. The old man asked the boys, it was their first time here, right? If they had any problems, they could go to him. Wei thought for a moment and thanked the old man for his concern. The old man laughed and replied that it was small things. But all this time the girl he saved was watching her master, and it pained her that she could not approach him when he was so close. She misses him so much. Even the small red mole on her master's chest. His mesmerizing aura he would recognize from 1,000. Even if he has changed his appearance, she can't be fooled by that. But at this time, Wei was actually feeling like someone was watching him. In the evening in his room, Wei lay on the couch and remembered how the mistress had told him to blow the whistle if he was in trouble. He thought that if he used the whistle to grab someone from the Wongu palace to ferret out information, he would definitely become the object of suspicion. Suddenly, he heard shouting. Wei immediately stood up and asked what was going on. Wu Jin rushed into the room and started shouting to the master. He said there's something unimaginable going on. The tournament has already begun, and it's a battle to the death. He apologizes to the master, but he made the wrong choice himself. Meanwhile, outside, a monster was killing students and leaving them lying in the street. The girl turned to her older sister and told her that they were done here. The sister told her that was great. Then it was time to move on to the next place. The winners of this tournament will definitely be them, and no one else will stop them from doing so. In the distant past, there were 3 masters in the world who constantly fought each other. The forces were so great that they destroyed everything in their path. The old man said he didn't know his old acquaintances would be here. After all, it's been years. The guy replied that they hadn't seen them in 4 years, so let her not disappoint him. But the girl listened to them and said she was already sickened by the sight of them. Damn old men. Suddenly, they all said together that it was time to decide who was the strongest, and this battle would be the last. The guy used his technique to attack, but the girl looked at him and asked, "Is that it?" The girl didn't feel sorry for him and told him that he was a seer. Didn't he come here knowing he was going to lose? But the old man replied that one uses all sorts of tricks and the other pours mud on everyone. They're two scum, and today he'll show them. The old man attacked them together and used the strength of a true martial arts master. At this time, Wu Jin looked at the battle and said that this was the battle between the strongest martial artists. And a master from all the major sects gather in one place to showcase their skills and compete for first place. And it inspires him so much, shakes him up, and scares him at the same time. That's great. The girl repelled this attack, and the old man said he didn't want to waste her power on his showy moves. The girl told him to shut up, and don't let him think he doesn't know about how he secretly announced a cash bounty on his head. Wei also came out to watch and said that these masters had come here to settle their personal grudges. Suddenly, someone from behind attacked them and ordered their men to grab their plaques. Wu Jin realized immediately that these were the guys who had been harassing them during the day. He immediately stood in front of the master and said that he would die for him. The girl told her men to be careful, for they were attacking them. Wu Jin used his technique and decided to protect his master so that he wouldn't engage in battle, and immediately used a card attack. Wei saw them and realized they were bank checks. The guys asked where did they go. The girl replied that it was a hoax. The girl said there's no point in running after them anymore, so maybe they'll just collect those checks and find another target. But suddenly the girl started to collect all the checks and suddenly collapsed to the ground. The guys saw this and realized that it was an enemy attack. But it was more complicated than that. Someone attacked them from behind. The guys saw the girl and asked who she was. The girl asked them, were they the ones trying to harm her favorite master? That powerful aura. At that time, there was a big explosion. But Shuai grabbed the boys and decided to get them away from the dangerous place. But the three strongest masters also felt a powerful aura. And the master of the Holy Warrior stage must have shown up here. The girl grabbed their numbers and turned them into one complete ring. She said that when she dialed 520, she would give the spatial ring to the master. And this will be the perfect chance to reunite with him. May he wait for her, and they will meet soon. Upon arriving at the normal place, Shuai asked the boy if he was okay. Wu Jin replied to make the boy promise him that next time he would at least take at his belt and not his collar. Wu Jin asked the master, what will they do next? Wei asked what else. Watch the performance unfold. Wu Jin was greatly surprised and didn't understand right away. But Wei threw the fried chicken in his hands and told him to enjoy it. Wei told him to go over to them and lay down and eat and rest. They have the best seats. Wu Jin thought at this moment, why does the master carry all these things with him? Wei told the guy that he was the one who told him how much he wanted to participate in the tournament. And now he refuses to have fun? Don't worry so much. Master has taken care of everything. And as he realized, the point of the second stage is to collect these plaques. The more they collected, the higher their place would be. And there's no point in chasing after the minnows and wasting their energy. They can just wait until they kill each other and then take everything from those who collected the most plaques. Wu Jin saw at this moment that the wisdom of Master was beyond comprehension. As they sat down in their seats, they enjoyed and relaxed. Suddenly, in a moment, powerful forces grabbed the Master's disciple. Initially, he didn't realize anything and just watched. Sheng was cultivating his strength at this time. But in a moment, he suddenly stopped and said that his strength was overflowing. And it's absolutely pure spiritual energy. Sheng said it's amazing at all. He would never have thought that there was a technique in the world that perfectly matched his 9 bands heart defense technique. And the treasures from his vault were worth it. As soon as he finished training, he'd go straight to punching the faces of those bastards who called him an old loser. However, he feels like there are a lot of flaws on this scroll. It's better to just wait for the next meeting with Brother Wei, and then ask him for advice. Coming out of his room, the servant met the master, and said that means he had completed his technique. And how'd it go? Sheng replied that everything was fine. The servant said that he was happy for the master, and during their absence, nothing happened. Sheng said he understood everything. But suddenly Yui came in and asked her father, has he come out yet? He was happy to see his daughter and asked her to come to him and he would show her something. Sean started demonstrating his new technique and told his daughter to check it out. You said that this is the 9 bends heart defense formation, but that it wasn't. Sheng answered her to look more closely. Yui asked with surprise, looking closer. She said, isn't that the golden lotus of the Tathagata they had seen that day? Sheng started laughing and replied wrongly. Although his 9 bends heart defense technique was considered a powerful martial technique, it has one major disadvantage. It's a technique designed for defense only. Therefore, it cannot reach its full potential on offense. For years, he had been looking for a technique that would help him perfect his formation technique, and he never expected to find it after a short walk with his daughter. And when he fully masters this technique, his 9 bends heart defense technique will be perfect. He will be able to both defend and attack. His picture will finally become complete. Sheng said it was all thanks to Brother Wei anyway. How's he doing? He'd like to visit him in person soon. You answered her father that he was out of town right now. Sheng was saddened and asked, Brother Wei didn't even say goodbye to him? They should have at least offered him horses. And why had their beautiful acquaintance lasted so short a time? And now it all makes sense to him. Yui said she had come to there in a couple days ago. One of the maids said that he had gone somewhere with his students, and he mentioned that he wanted to sign up his students for the tournament, and it was just about to start. And she thinks he's accompanying his students to the tournament now. Sheng asked his daughter that next time she should mention such important things right away, right? She knows he's impressionable, right? He asked her why she didn't notify him about it right away. Let him know that Brother Wei wants to enroll his students in the tournament, would issue him a couple of direct invitations to the tournament. And it's always a mess during the first stage of the tournament. If they haven't come back yet, it means they've made it to the second stage. You told her father that he locked himself in a room and didn't want to listen to anyone. How would she tell him that? Sheng thought, why would the incredibly powerful and ambitious Brother Wei be interested in this tasteless tournament? Suddenly, he came to what he thought. It was all about Brother Wei's combination of both equanimity and magnanimity. He just didn't want his young apprentices to become hermits before they had a chance to see the world. And Wei is a great master. At this time, Wu Jin looked at the spectacle and said that this was the end. The girl told him that she had warned them, right? This is no place for kids like him. Let them just give up and leave the tournament. And she doesn't want to hurt the little ones. Wei touched the magic roots and said that the thing was so strange to the touch. Wu Jin started yelling to the master that the baby had been grabbed. The girl was greatly surprised and thought, what was wrong with this guy? Wasn't this little guy with him? Or did he just not care about him? And besides, she doesn't feel the spiritual energy of a martial arts practitioner in him at all. Did a mere mortal enter the tournament? Unexpectedly, Wei examined these roots and remembered that it looked very similar to the slime in the book. He took the slime in his hands and held it. But the girl at this moment felt that something was clearly wrong. This is a sword path tournament. How could an ordinary mortal get in here? And not just him, he doesn't feel any spiritual energy from that guy next to him either. Is there some kind of technique they use to hide their power? She thought hard and settled on the fact that it must be. It is. But everyone comes here to show off their power and get first place. Why would they hide it? But Wu Jin thought at this time that although the combat skills of the master and Shuai are incredible, but this is a sword path tournament after all. Here, every other person could be a king stage master. And now is not the time to be distracted by petty bipeds. That sister must be at the peak of the king's stage. And his master didn't even flinch, which was to be expected from their master. He didn't lose control of the situation even after Shuai was captured. And from behind, his master looks even more majestic. He has a soothing aura about him. Wei asked, is this one created from internal energy? Just like Brother Xia that time. And Xiao Shuai is not someone who needs his help. But this is an opportunity that should not be missed. The girl immediately sensed that he was going to attack. Wei suddenly pulled out a sword and said that it was a gift from Brother Xia. Wei said he's going to cut himself off a bit now, and then he's going to study it properly. The master at this time came out of the tavern with wine in his hands and said that he didn't think that a master of the holy warrior stage would show up in such a wilderness. And I'd have to convince him to join their Yuden sect. It would be a shame if he missed the opportunity. But the girl grabbing the boy asked his master what was wrong with him. The master saw this and asked the same thing. What is going on there? The girl told him, can't he see that she has his student hostage? Can't he show a little respect? If he doesn't respect his opponent, at least let him respect his fellow hostage. The master saw that the woman who was pestering the child during the day, she has the aura of an early-stage warrior king stage master. Not bad at all. The girl asked the guy, doesn't he believe he can hurt a child? She can do it. If he doesn't stop, she will. The master looked a little closer and saw that she was holding the very same baby. But where is his master? Wei started waving his sword around and said that this sword was stupid. It's only good for pounding nuts. Wu Jin ran up to the master and told him to try this knife. He spent a lot of money to get this knife. The host tried to listen to their voices and asked what were they chattering about. But Wei was at this time shouting to his young apprentice not to be afraid. His master would save him soon. Wu Jin told the master that it was his fault for not keeping Shuai safe. If something happened to him, he could use this knife to kill him as punishment. The host at this time got very angry because he got all wrong. The girl told the guy not to blame her then for what would happen to him. But suddenly, an energy surged in front of her. She didn't realize what had happened at first. The master took the boy from her arms and asked, has she lost her mind? How could she bully a child? There are over 100 masters in the arena right now, and she decided to take away the plaques of just these kids? She only attacks the weak, and it's gut-wrenching to fight the strong. The girl asked the old man, where did he even come from? Had he seen what was going on in the arena? Someone had already collected most of the contestants' plaques. She doesn't want to lose, so she had to attack them. And where did he see her abusing a kid? This guy provoked her. The owner said he saw it with his own eyes. This guy can't even use his chi. What's she talking about? All he has is a dull old sword that's already cracked. The girl got angry and said she'd had enough, and immediately used the secret soul-devouring technique. She tried to attack the old man, but he dodged, and with her other limbs, she grabbed Wei. The girl asked him if he was still hiding his power. He means he's teasing her, and now they'll see how long he can keep it up. She'll make him show his skills. The old man looked at her and said she's strong, even knows the soul-eating technique. She's gonna be tough. Shuai told Grandpa that his master is very strong. He can definitely handle it. The old man replied that he knew in the eyes of the child the master would always be the most powerful and trustworthy man in the whole world. And he's a good master, determined to fight an opponent superior to him to save him. However, it would be hard to stop her. Once the soul-devouring technique is activated, it cannot be interrupted even by the wielder. It will suck the victim's chi until it reaches the dantian itself. After that, the victim will never be able to use chi again, and he's afraid that nothing can help his master anymore. Suddenly, everything in the moment changed, and the girl felt her options shrinking. She thought, how can this be? She said it was impossible. The soul-eating technique can only be interrupted under two conditions. Either the victim is not a martial artist and has no internal chi. Liuo, the internal chi of the victim, is far superior to the internal chi of the technique master. Wei suddenly pulled free and realized that this was somehow weak. He thought he'd press a little harder. The girl realized that things were bad and even felt that she had lost. She immediately wondered what he was like. But the old man immediately realized that this guy, he remembered everything and felt that it was the same person. At this moment, the girl he had saved suddenly appeared, and this time took him into her arms. Wei looked at her and remembered that she was the same one he had saved and cured. The girl hugged him and shouted that it was her master. But Wei at this moment didn't realize what was even happening. The girl apologized to the master and said that his worthless apprentice came too late and the master had to do everything himself. But the master is still as strong as ever, so he easily dealt with his opponent and gave him the ring and told him to take it. There are 520 participant plaques in this space ring. This ring symbolizes her endless love towards him. The girl got down on one knee and said that the master must have changed his appearance and signed up to participate in this shitty tournament to take revenge on those pathetic 3 sects, right? As expected of his master, he weaves ingenious plots as always. Wei turned to her and began to worry. The girl asked the master, is he still mad at her? He used to just call her Shui Er. Wei asked her, how long has she been following him for? Er replied that since he had treated her wounds, she would never mistake the master's scent for someone else's. Wei realized that all this time he had sensed her, that she was watching him, so he asked her about that huge pile of black ginseng she had brought. Elle replied, yes. Was there any way she could help the master? She asked. Wei smiled and said of course. She helped him a lot. Wei thought, and now it was clear to him why he constantly felt someone's gaze on him. It was air, and judging by this girl's behavior, she was very close to the previous owner of this body. But we need to understand exactly how the old owner behaved with his subordinate. He doesn't want her to suspect him of anything. Air told the master that by changing their appearance, they became a little more gentle than before. But naturally, she also liked the fierce master from before. Wu Jin suddenly walked up to the master and asked him if he was all right. He scared him to death. The old man came over and told him that he didn't have to worry, his master was perfectly fine, and had hidden his spiritual energy so well that he no longer believed that he could reverse the soul eater technique. He realized that even if only for a moment, this was where the aura of a master stage saint warrior flashed. When he saw that woman grab the child, he hastily thought that she was just mocking the weak. However, he had forgotten that ordinary mortals were not allowed to enter the sword path tournament. And even when his apprentice fell into the hands of the enemy, he did not show his strength, but only threatened that wench with an old sword. And the little boy was sure from the very beginning that his master would not let him get hurt. There wasn't a shadow of fear on his face even when the soul-devouring technique was used against him. Such an unwavering spirit suited their wooden sect. And now he has such a nice seedling in front of him now. He just can't pass it by. We must bring him to their sect. The old man turned to the boy and asked what his name was. Wei looked at him and thought, who is this grandfather? And why does he look more like a villain than he does? Er asked the master if he wanted her to deal with him. Wei asked her, they know each other. Er replied that she knew him. However, he had not yet grown to know her. Unless she is confused, this is the third elder of the Yuden sect. The vagabonds call him the god of drunkenness. Wei asked with surprise, Wooden sect? Is that one of those great sects? Er replied that yes, that was correct. In the past, he disliked this sect because they were too poor and their disciples led a vagabond lifestyle. So he didn't even put them on a list of those who had been declared war. Wei thought, what other list? Was he really that short-sighted? Er said that when the other sects found out about it, they thought that the Yuden sect was conspiring with their devil sect and almost declared war on them themselves. If it wasn't for the fact that the Wooden sect had 3 warrior king stage elders, they wouldn't even have to do anything. They would have drowned each other in blood themselves. Wei said, what a confusing story that was. Day continued that, however, when their devil sect was at its prime, then even if they had combined all their forces and attacked them, they still wouldn't have even come close to winning. Sure, their sect is going through a temporary decline right now, but he believes that as long as their chapter is with them, things will soon get back to normal. The old man got angry and told the guy he asked him a question. He was wondering who he was and what sect he was from, or had he not yet found a home. The guy replied that his name was Wei. He thanked him for his help, but he didn't know how to address him. The old man replied that his young apprentice called him grandfather, so he could address him the same way. Wei said he wouldn't even dare. Er was surprised that it had been a long time since she had last heard the master speak to someone in person. But what had happened to the master while she had been away? Suddenly, Wu Jin walked over to Er and turned and asked her what her name was. Does she know their master? Er didn't answer anything and realized that if she had been near the master, he wouldn't have had to deal with these scum. Maybe the master was short of warriors. If that's the case, then she's ready to go for it. She has a beautiful, healthy body and is sure that her and master's children will also grow up to be very strong martial artists. She will make fine warriors for master herself. The old man asked suddenly, who was that girl beside him? He realized that although this girl didn't hide her power, but her aura was strange. He couldn't understand it. Wei replied that it was his cousin. He hadn't seen her in years, but by chance they had met at this tournament. but she is very shy and doesn't like to talk to strangers, so you can forgive her." The old man replied that then they knew each other. The old man told him that, as he already knew, this tournament was organized by the three great sects. It was necessary for powerful masters from all over Jianghu to gather in one place and exchange their martial experience. However, in reality, the true purpose of the tournament was always to attract new talent. And, frankly, he and his students had taken a liking to him, and so he will ask directly, would they be willing to join the Yuden sect? Wei thanked for the invitation, but they weren't interested. The next day, Qinxiu and Wei were sitting in the carriage, and she asked him in surprise, why did he refuse the invitation of the third elder of the Wuding sect? Wei replied that for some reason he had begun to insist that he and his students join them. Qinxiu asked, did he really refuse? Wei replied that that was right, he wasn't interested. He would rather be Li Ji Wei, the founder of his sect, than be some disciple of the Wuding sect. He doesn't want to obey anyone else's rules, so he will create his own sect and live as his soul desires. Qinxiu said, what an interesting logic he had. She knew that the people all called her Wongu Palace Saint, but how many of them would remember her real name? And this guy doesn't seem to be prudent, yet he has a casual and free vibe about him. Wei had been thinking all this time and suddenly realized that this title would be perfect for attracting attention. Master Clickbait. And he will take this opportunity to promote his name as much as possible. No one will suspect him of being the former lord of a demonic sect. And he needs to come up with a name for his new sect. And he can't call it Demon Sect 2.0. I'll have to talk to Air about it later. Suddenly, the driver addressed the gentlemen that they were at the place. Wei got out and said that he was grateful that he had driven them home. And wouldn't the gentlemen like to stop by their inn for a while and have some of their tea? Qinxiu asked with surprise, what? He even has an inn? Suddenly, fireworks exploded and a servant greeted him and congratulated him on his return. The soldiers also began to all shout together that they were congratulating their master on his triumphant victory. Their master is a matchless champion. The servant asked her master, where is the young master? She had something to tell him. Wei replied that her master was in that carriage. Head Sheng also came to the meeting and told Brother Wei that he had been away for so long, and very happy to have him back, although the results were not yet known. But he was sure that Brother Wei had won the first place. He had been waiting for him since morning to congratulate him first. You told her father to be quiet. Qinxiu suddenly saw a familiar face and asked, Uncle Xia? She friend immediately thought, what is going on here? And is this really the same powerful master that you was talking about? You turned to Qinxiu and asked why she was here. The girl replied that she was the one who should have asked. What are they doing here? Do they know each other? Yui replied, that of course. This is the same guy she told her about. Let her meet him, he's Wei's brother. Qinxiu said, what's his name for? Let her better tell her why Uncle Xia, who was known for his nobility and restraint, was acting like this around this guy. Xing turned to Qinxiu and said that although she was a saint of the Wongu Palace, she should realize that in Jianghu, the strength of a master was respected. Even Brother Wei had addressed him as an elder the first time they met, so why did she continue to speak to her brother in such an impolite manner? Qinxiu replied to Uncle Xia, he is much older than him after all. She doesn't think it's appropriate for him to call this young man his brother. Sheng said that, as the saying goes, a teacher is someone you can learn from. If it weren't for Brother Wei's refusal, he would have called him father too. And if it wasn't for Brother Wei's generosity, he would never have been able to break through to the next stage. Brother Wei is truly a deity to him. Qinxiu asked the girl, is her father all right? She felt like there was something wrong with him. You replied that it was fine, just a little overexcited. Qinxiu said that she was the one who called a little overexcited. Is it true that Uncle Xia broke through to the next stage thanks to Wei? You asked her if she remembered the major flaw of his father's 9 bends heart defense technique. Qinxiu replied that of course. The 9 bends heart defense technique is a very powerful defense technique. However, its disadvantage is that it does not allow her to attack her opponent. She knows that Uncle Xia has been searching for an attacking technique that could be combined with his 9 bends heart defense technique all this time. However, this is almost impossible. There weren't many compatible techniques in the world, much less Uncle Xia's powerful Uncle Xia formation technique. Sheng asked Brother Wei if he could look at his execution of the technique and tell him what he was missing. Qinxiu thought afterwards, why did things have to be like this? How could this guy turn out to be the suspicious master that Yui was talking about? And she mentioned that there was a small child fiddling around next to him. You told Qinxiu that maybe she didn't know, but Brother Wei was just trying to hide his strength. He's actually an incredibly powerful master, and if they persuade him to join the Iron Gate sect, but their sect will gain new wings. Qinxiu thought that it looks like this guy has not only brainwashed Uncle Xia, but also you. I mean, he's just a youngster. How could such a youngster be a strong master? And Uncle Xia is a master of the Holy Warrior stage. Does he really need advice from some suspicious guy they don't know anything about? But she gave him the Wongu palace whistle. She even wondered if he would agree to return it. Sheng and Brother Wei went to the forest for the head to demonstrate his strength, so he could tell him what was missing. He had gained enough energy and released the 9 bends heart defense technique outward. Sheng demonstrated and asked Brother Wei what he thought. His technique came out a little weaker than his young disciples, yet he was still just starting to master it. Sheng looked at Brother Wei and thought, why is he frowning? He had a wrinkled forehead, frowning eyebrows, and tense lips. He was definitely angry, but why was he still silent? Was it really so bad that Brother Wei had to think long and hard about an answer, so as not to hurt his feelings? But at this time, Wei was angry that he was able to master this technique, even with an incomplete description. This was his enemy, and it turns out that he's digging his own grave here. But he thought about it, and decided that if he acted now as the exact opposite of the past owner of the body, no one would ever begin to suspect him. He realized that it was true, and the past owner was a powerful and cruel demonic sect master. He's just an ordinary and harmless guy. And besides, he would need money to re-establish his sect. He would probably have to put out some incomplete version of the technique to attract followers and sponsors. Qinxiu looked at all of this and couldn't believe that it was impossible. And it turns out Yu was telling the truth. It turned out to be much worse. Madame told Qinxiu that she had done a good job this time. Maybe at least after this, the emperor would get a little bit off their backs. She is even afraid to imagine how many people had to empty their treasuries to gather so much sulfur ginseng. Qinxiu replied to Madame that this entire mountain of black ginseng was brought by one person. Madame asked with surprise, what? One? Qinxiu replied that yes, he had. At first, she thought that this person had come to make connections with their Wongu palace, but even after the time had passed, he didn't ask for anything other than those official seats in the tournament. And after the tournament was over, she drove him back to Yuhang and discovered that there was clearly something wrong with this guy. Even Uncle Xia's Saint Warrior stage master treats him with great respect. And then she learned that, because of him, Uncle Xia was able to refine his 9 bends heart defense technique. And since he was able to find a technique that was perfect for even combining with Uncle Xia's technique, maybe she could too. But suddenly Madame said no. She asked her, had she forgotten who she was? People who raise poisonous creatures can't practice martial arts. She doesn't think that those creatures inside her would so easily allow her to start cultivating. And besides, don't let her forget that she's a saint of the Wongu Palace. She can't make friends with outsiders so easily. Qinxiu replied that senior sister Yu had managed to awaken her cultivation after all. She was even able to rise to the warrior king stage. Not only can she practice martial arts, but she also walks around accompanied by handsome men. So why can't she at least get a little closer to the person who seems special to him? Mistress got angry and replied, what insolence. She may have started praising her a lot, but that didn't mean she was allowed to cross her. Her older sister Yui is special. She is no match for her. This time, she also decided to participate in the tournament. However, during the second stage, someone will be able to wrap the Soul Eater technique against her. She hadn't regained consciousness since then, and she asked Qinxiu that she was the one in charge of Arena A at the tournament, right? Have her find the person who dared to attack the palace, disciple Wongu. As soon as she finds the bastard, have him tell her. She will personally skin him. The next day, The guys were already talking about the result of the tournament. The boy was telling his friends that he had heard that the winner of this year's Sword Path tournament was one of the masters of their city, Yuhang. My friend asked in surprise, what? They're the only poor people in town, so where can a master come from? But a passerby told them not to say that. Even though their town is small, they are full of important people. Did they even hear that Master Xia of the Iron Gate sect had arrived? He came to check on them, but he hasn't left yet. Suddenly, a passing grandmother joined in and said that's right. Besides, their town had become busier in recent days. Even her shop was making more money. Suddenly, a monk came up to them and said that he apologized for interrupting their conversation, but did they have a place in town where they could stay for a while? My grandmother replied that they have a lot of guests in town right now, so the local hotel is full. She thinks there is still room in the new hotel, but it has recently changed ownership and they have started renovations. Suddenly, the little boy told his elder brother that he wanted to try these berries. The monk answered him that the master had given them money for the journey, and there was not much left, so from now on they would save money. The monk was already very tired from his travels through the cities and wished he could go home. Originally, he was actually sent to the tournament to show Junior the world and greet the elders of the three great sects. But he was so tired that he was ready to spend the night, even under a tree. But suddenly he saw a familiar child. That child was Shuai. He came to Manhwa and said he had brought her some fruit, and the master said to tell her that they could bring everything back from the inn. Hua replied that okay, she would, and asked the boy, how are the renovations going there? When does it open? Shuai replied that the hotel will open tomorrow. Be sure to have him come. Hua asked, already tomorrow? Then Annie will definitely come. Suddenly she remembered and said that it just so happened that these monks were looking for a place to stay. Chinchio at this time was steering the name of the inn and telling the workers how to put up. Wei approached her and apologized for disturbing the saint herself for such a trivial matter. Chinchio replied to Wei that it was already the hour of the snake. Why did he wake up so late? Wei replied that he had been working too hard lately, so now that he had some free time, he decided to get some sleep. She suddenly turned to Madame Saint and said that she had said that she would return to her normal life after the tournament. But why did she choose to linger in Yuhang City? Chinchio replied that she was free to stay wherever she wanted. In fact, she didn't get the chance to be in the outside world very often, so she wasn't going to return so soon. Suddenly, Chinchio asked Brother Wei if he had seen any suspicious people in arena, eh? Wei asked with surprise, suspicious people? Honestly, all the participants in the arena seemed like rather dubious types to her. But he thought, why did she suddenly ask that? She hadn't had time to find out about Air's true identity, had she? That's impossible. They hadn't even met. Chinchio said that was the case. Most of the members of Arena A were unfamiliar with each other, so it was no wonder he was suspicious of everyone. Chinchio asked the guy, had he met a girl there who could give her spiritual energy the shape of red vines? She was supposed to be accompanied by a couple of handsome men. She doesn't think she could be confused with anyone. Wei remembered and saw everything as if it were real, accompanied by the handsome men using the red vines. He actually thought that this girl was just an ordinary secondary character who would disappear after the main scene. Wei told her, could she tell her who this girl was to begin with? Chinchio replied that she was a disciple of their Wongu palace. During the tournament, she was seriously injured and still hasn't woken up. Their lord values her very much, so she became furious about what had happened. Later, she ordered her to find the person who had done it, but all the participants of Arena A had already dispersed to their own affairs. And so he was the only one she could ask. Wei replied, so that's it. Wei thought this was getting serious, but he didn't do anything like that. It wasn't him, was it? But what if it was still him? Was the internal chi of this body so strong that he had unknowingly harmed that girl? Suddenly, Shuai turned to the master and said that he had returned. He also brought guests with him. Suddenly, the boy told Wei that it was him. He had brought a child with him to the first stage of the Sword Path tournament. Wei pretended to remember them and replied that he hadn't expected to see them here. And since they already had visitors, perhaps it would be better for them to talk inside. And he told the lady Saint to come in. Upon entering, Chinchio realized what was being said. She had never stayed in hotels before after all, and they have quite a rich decoration here. Now I can see where he got so much black ginseng from. And this guy has absolutely no interest in the great sects. On top of that, he was even able to help Uncle Xia advance to the next stage. So why was he so obviously trying to placate their palace, Wongu? Chinchio said that she had heard from you that this hotel used to be called Hotel Number 1. So why did he decide to change the name? But in fact, at first she had thought it was him trying to flatter him. And now she was beginning to think that it was actually she who was lying in front of him. The monks suddenly approached them too and told them that they were hermits and lived in isolation from the rest of the world, as it is only in the midst of mountains, forests, and lakes that they can enter a state of solitude. However, even they sometimes have to leave these places and face the turbulent waves of worldly life. And at such times, all they want is peace. The monk thought that an inn is a place where people come to rest. Even though they are in a hectic world ruled by powerful masters, every traveler hopes to find a corner of peace and tranquility. And a nice inn represents the ideal of every traveler in their world. And he understood the meaning of the name of the inn. The monk began to pour out tears and said it was a beautiful name. He had been looking for this place for so long. Wei asked the monk, did he think so too? He didn't think anyone would be able to understand the joke he put in the name, and he felt kindred spirits. Last night, Wei turned to Air and said that she may have heard about this before, but he can't use his powers right now because of the poison he was poisoned with during the last battle. However, right now, he had already managed to establish a good relationship with the Iron Gate sect, and even managed to get acquainted with the Wongu Palace Saint. And that's why they can't rush to revive the demonic sect now. Air replied that yes, and Shui would continue to serve her master. Wei told her she didn't have to worry. There was no one here but the two of them. So I'd like to talk to her about something. Air thought at once. No one but the two of them? And what do they need to talk about? Does the master want to offer her the very thing? She would agree to anything with the master. Wei asked her, Peaceful Inn, what did she think of the name? Air at this moment was surprised very much and didn't understand. Chinchio saw Wei and the monk chatting and realized that there was some hidden meaning in the new name. One movie said that the more he hides from someone, the easier it is to find him. No one would think that the ruler of a demonic sect would open a peaceful inn in plain sight. The monk asked Mr. Master that he let them stay at their inn. Wei replied that there was no need to call him Master. Let him just call him Ownerly. Wei told Shui to lead the guests to their room. The boy replied that yes, of course. When the boy entered his rooms, he was surprised and shouted that there was new furniture. The monk didn't even bother to do anything and immediately laid down on the bed. He savored the moment and was glad that he was finally laying down on the soft crib. The boy went up to his brother and said that you can't sleep now. The older brother replied to the younger brother that you can't disturb people when they are falling asleep. The younger brother told his brother that's not what he meant. He started shouting that Master Zhu Kuan had said that a great fortune might be waiting for them in Yuhang. If it didn't go out to the city, how would they meet their fate? The older one replied that the younger one didn't think of something about destiny when he was hanging around everywhere. But once they settled in the inn, suddenly he remembered. Besides, they hadn't left the city yet, and there was still a chance. Junior said that fate is not so merciful. It could disappear if they procrastinate. Let the brother get up. They need to go for a walk. But the eldest resisted and said he would just take a nap for a while. But suddenly someone knocked on the door. The older one came up and asked who was it. The younger one came out and said it was the servants. They were brought a basket of fruit and said that it was a gift in honor of the opening of the hotel. The older one told him to remember to thank them. Can he eat first? Just let big brother sleep. But he remembered that the master had only said that they should visit Yuhang City. He did not specify exactly what great fortune awaited them here. But he decided he needed a good night's sleep first. It was easier to think with a fresh head. But the younger one kept up with him and immediately started yelling to his older brother. He immediately stood up and asked, "What more do you need?" The youngest pointed his finger and said, "That's what he thought." The older one also looked with his mouth open and realized that this was great luck. An old lady came to the inn and told Wei that after the renovation, his inn looks just like a palace. She thinks there is no other inn like it in the whole Central Plain, and his young apprentice yesterday asked her to bring some flowers so he could decorate the entrance to the inn. How's that for a gift? Wei thanked Manhwa and said that it reminded him of something. Hua replied that her aunt would come to see the opening tomorrow. She would be there to support him. It pained her to see him being bullied, her boy, but now he was a big shot himself. He can't get used to it. And now that he was the innkeeper, he could take care of not only himself, but also that baby. She was looking after him, too. Wei asked his aunt, "Is it about Shuai?" Hua replied that they'd better talk about it next time, and he had a lot of work piled up, too. Wei said he understood and warned her to remember to bring her friends tomorrow. And so the ants got some fruit. They grew them in their garden. Suddenly a monk came running in unexpectedly and shouted to the master to wait. Wei noticed that these were holy fruits that had been stolen 2 years ago, and now he was running like never before. The monk realized that this was the very fate that awaited them in Yuhang. But why did the holy fruits end up in such a place? The monk came over and said he apologized to them in advance and immediately removed the towel from the basket. The monk asked the master, where did he get these fruits from? Wei was surprised and asked him, did he mean the sugar apple? They grew them. The monk felt very bad at this point and was surprised at the master's answer. He could not believe that they had grown such apples. Wei set out to prove to him that all his words were true. Bringing him to the garden, the monk realized that these were indeed planted holy fruits, and there are still so many of them. Wei said that these fruits were picked by his student. Shuai liked them, so he decided to plant a couple. Wei turned around and saw that monk was crying. He even wondered why he was crying. The monk said that Master Zhu Kuan had made it clear to them that the holy fruits were very valuable. The monk knew that the holy fruit tree of their temple was balder than his head, and it hadn't borne fruit in over a decade. 2 years ago, they somehow miraculously managed to grow a few fruits, but they were stolen, not even too ripe. He never thought he would see such a picture in this life. They are so noble. He had a feeling that if he looked at them long enough, he might go blind. Wei told him to stop crying. Is this fruit really that delicious? He could take a couple of them with him. It'll also help promote the inn. The monk said he was puzzled about something. Why are their holy fruit trees so fruitful and growing well? There is one such tree in their temple too, but not even close to his. Wei asked, where's his temple located? What is the climate there? The monk replied that their temple was at the top of Mount Lin, and because of their formation, there was always a spring climate there. Wei said that's the problem. A sugar apple is a tropical fruit. Naturally, it won't grow normally under these conditions. He realized that he had worked hard to reproduce a tropical climate in the garden. The tropical climate of the garden. Wei said that trees won't grow faster just because they want it badly. First, you have to prepare the conditions that are perfect for the tree and they want to grow. Monk thought immediately, how does one grow a tropical fruit? A sugar apple? What is that even? But he remembered that every plant had certain environmental conditions that would suit her. They always thought they were taking the best care of the tree of holy fruit, and it turned out that they were not giving it what it needed. And suddenly enlightenment came to him. He did not hold back his tears and cried immediately in front of the master. A guy from the Lingjian sect named Lu Rinjia said that this hotel looked good, but why is it still closed? The girl said that's right. Since it's a hotel, it should be open all the time. Why are they making Lu's brother and her wait so long? Suddenly, Wu Jin stepped in front of them and asked, do they wish to stay at their inn? He apologizes, of course, but she won't open until tomorrow. The girl replies that here is the owner finally showing himself. She had already gotten to thinking that some dead man owned the inn. Why did he make them wait so long? Did he even realize who they were? The girl asked the guy, he's just a shitty hotel owner. Who does he think he is anyway? Wu Jin replied that he was 25th on the kill list and moved up in the rankings after Wei won the tournament. He realized that he was no longer the same person he used to be. Wu Jin asked them, are they looking for a fight? Why don't she ask who he is herself for starters? And how dare he call his masters and shitty? Is she too brave? And he had already told her that the inn wouldn't open until tomorrow. The girl got angry and immediately drew her sword. Rinjia stopped his sister and said that there was no need to be so rude. The guy asked him if he was the owner of this inn, and now he's facing a disciple of the Lingjian sect. It just so happened that the other inns in the city had no room left. Since they were going to open tomorrow anyway, could they still make a small exception and accept them a little earlier? Wu Jin got excited and replied that this was the kind of communication he preferred. And they got it all wrong. The owner of this inn is his master. Also, his sister has already expressed her dissatisfaction with their hotel. He thinks their crappy hotel isn't exactly unsuitable for the high-ranking gentleman of the Lingjian sect. The girl told him that he was the one who started provoking her. Rinjia stopped her and told her to calm down. He told the gentleman that his sister was tired from the road, which is why she said something rash. She doesn't really think that way. He turned to Wu Jin and asked if he could escort him to the owner. He would like to talk to him personally. Wu Jin said no. His master was talking to his guests right now, and he wouldn't dare to bother him about such trivial matters. He had told them many times that the hotel wouldn't open until tomorrow. Or is it that they, the high-ranking masters of the Lingjian sect, are not bound by the law? Rinjiao was also angry and saw that the guy didn't even raise an eyebrow when he heard his name. The name of the first disciple of the Lingjian sect, who even owns this inn. The girl turned to her older brother and told him that this guy doesn't put them in anything at all. She will personally teach him a lesson. She started to run to launch an attack, but saw that her brother, Lu, wouldn't stop her. But really, she was just pretending to be formidable. Rinji told his sister not to behave so intemperately. After all, now he wanted to know who was behind this inn. Suddenly, there was a huge explosion. The people who were in the city saw fire. Yu asked immediately what was the matter there. Qinxiu replied that she thought the sound came from the direction of Brother Wei's inn. While talking to the monk, Wei heard a strange noise. He said that the city must be very lively today. And if you think about it, it's been quite some time since he's been in this world. And thanks to his perfectly thought-out plan, everything is going according to plan. And he is sure that in the near future he is peaceful and will become the most famous place in the whole world. Suddenly, Yui came in and told him that something was wrong at his inn, and she pointed her finger that it was very bad. In front of the inn, the flames of fire never stopped. Rinjia caught his sister at the moment of attack. Rinjia realized that although she had a bad temper, but judging by her ability, she was the most skillful amongst the disciples of her age. And he brushed off her attack, so easily a pretty strong guy. But when he looked closer, he saw that there was a kid standing in front of him. The girl got angry and said she didn't know where the brat came from, but she's sure her attack was repelled by some treasure he's carrying. It won't work a second time, and he wouldn't be able to block her kick. Rinjia stood in front of her and told his sister to leave it to him. Rinjia, he said that since they are both martial arts masters, and now they will find out who is stronger. Only he will let them stay at the inn if he defeats this kid. The boy thought that meant the junior's attack was blocked by this boy. However, at this moment, he didn't feel the fluctuation of his spiritual power, and he thinks his sister is right. This boy was protected by some treasure he carries with him. He immediately attacked the boy. Rinjia still realized that if he didn't, he would become a laughingstock to the entire world. They would pay for daring to insult their sect. Rinjia got very close and told the boy to try and block it. Shuai stood still and waited for his moment, and suddenly he flew like an arrow and punched the guy in the face. The blow was so hard it was as if his face had been turned into a punching bag. The girl was scared for her brother and realized that he was in danger. She got angry and said how dare they hit his eldest, and she would make them pay for it. She attacked him and realized that this kid only knew how to swing his fists. It's been known since ancient times that he who is strong in attack is weak in defense. The girl did a deceptive trick, suddenly appearing behind them. She had already gotten very excited and realized that he was caught, and attacked with her sword from behind. At this time, Head Sheng and the others came to the inn. The head wondered what had happened here, but the girl lay on the floor and said it was impossible. How many techniques does this boy know? And didn't Master say that martial artists could only master one technique in their entire lives? Xing asked, has the problem been solved yet? Wei asked also, can someone tell him what happened here? Wu Jin immediately appeared and told the master that the only reason he could see him in full health now was because of his younger brother Shuai. Rinjia heard all this talk and thought that this youngster was his master. All this time, he was pretending to be dead. Rinjia stood up and thought that since this Yunai was the master of that little devil, he was afraid that he might be even scarier. And now he has to run while they are distracted talking. Suddenly the girl saw this and started yelling to her older brother. Rinjia told the younger one to wait for him here. He'll bring someone to help. Rinjia didn't stop to save her sister, and in the same second she was vaporized before her eyes. The girl shouted to her brother that he could have taken her with him after all. And why did he run away alone? Wei was surprised and said that he took off so fast. Chinchou asked him why he didn't stop him. Isn't he afraid that they will come back with help? And she's afraid he'll be in more trouble if he lets it go now. Wei asked why would that be? I mean, it was just an ordinary passerby. Besides, it's not like he ran away. He realized that trouble only comes to those who think about it. That's why all the main characters in books always suffer so much. He knows that. Wei said that on top of that, they also have a hostage in their hands. Chinchou thought at this moment, does he even know who his big brother is? Wu Jin said that he had told them that his master could kill a war king stage master with just one move. They don't give a damn about their Lingjian sect. Their master will kill anyone who intends to harm them. Chinchou asked with surprise, a war king with a single move? Isn't he exaggerating too much? But she remembered Yu's words that it wasn't an exaggeration. She had seen with her own eyes how he had demolished an entire house with one finger just because there wasn't enough room. Sheng said Lingjian sect, if they are really disciples of this sect, they are in trouble. At this time, a servant rushed into the Lingjian sect and shouted to the head that they were in big trouble. But the head immediately attacked him right in the chest. The head said to Zhao, didn't he tell him that he wouldn't let anyone distract him when he was conferring with the sect heads? Moon Reflection Tower Master Yumian said that it was immediately obvious that Head Lu had moved to the War Saint stage. His aura had become even more formidable. But there was no need to be angry at this fool. Perhaps he just wanted to deliver important news quickly. Green Mountain Qing Tower Master said that they were in no hurry, and the head of Lu could be distracted. Rennie told him to report what happened there. The servant replied to the head of Lu that his brother had returned. Mian asked his brother, was that servant talking about Lurinjia? Rennie replied that some time ago, his brother had left the mountain with his junior to gain experience and accomplishments. And now that he has returned, it means he has achieved what he wanted. Let the servant call him here to greet the respected sect heads. The servant replied to the head that he was afraid Brother Lu would not be able to come up now. Rennie asked with surprise, what? Should he bring him himself? Qin told the head not to get so angry. Maybe he had prepared some surprise for him. His son likes to do that too. Rennie said that since he couldn't approach them, they would come to him themselves. As he walked out in front of the sect, the head saw his brother lying on his knees, all beaten up. Mian turned to the head and asked when his apprentice had had time to change so much. It had only been a couple months since they had seen him. Rennie asked him what had happened to him, and where was his little sister. Rinjia replied that he and his younger sister had reached Yuhang and were looking for an inn to sleep in. He had a polite conversation with an employee of a certain hotel, but this rascal suddenly attacked him and almost killed him. He escaped when they let their guard down, but here was the younger one. The girl suddenly thought about Yuhang City. Wei was thanking Brother Xia at this time, and if he hadn't brought the helpers, they wouldn't have had time to clean up the place. Although he still thinks these reeds are out of place here. Sheng told him that it's not worth a thank you. He's ashamed that this is all he can do to help. And it turns out Brother Wei likes reeds. I'll have to send him some if I get the chance. Shang said that although their Iron Gate sect is one of the powerful sects, but even they can't openly interfere in the struggles of other sects. Although the Lingjian sect didn't have many followers, but they shouldn't be underestimated. He asked Brother Wei if he knew why the three great sects teamed up with the Imperial Palace and established the Sword Path tournament. Wei asked to look for capable people. Sheng replied that yes. This is how they strengthen their power. In his time, The demonic sect Lord Z Wei had killed countless martial artists and destroyed many sects. Some sects began to unite, others simply disappeared, and others began to swallow up smaller sects. Wei asked, absorb? Sheng replied that in their world, only strength was respected, so it was inevitable. And the Lingjian sect was one of those sects that grew their power through absorption. The next day, the news trickled through town. The guy asked the girl if she had heard what happened yesterday. The girl replied that she didn't and asked what was there, but it turned out to be much worse than that. Mian stood over the house and asked, "Is this the Peace Inn?" Rinny replied, "What a miserable place this was. Apparently, they brought such a crowd here for nothing." Mian told him not to judge a book by its cover, but she told the others to look it up. They and their sect only use these kinds of wreaths as a tribute to the deceased. Maybe they knew they'd show up, so they put them there on purpose. They even wrote the word holiday on them, probably just to mess with them. Rinny told the others to obey his orders. Have them seize and bind everyone in this inn. If they find its owner, let them bring him to his feet at once. The girl looked at the inn and realized who it belonged to. Qing asked her what she was thinking about. Suddenly, he remembered and said that she was kind of a genera from this city, right? Qing suggested that as soon as they were done with this business, she stop by her house. He heard that she has a sister living here. She must be as pretty as she is. The girl tried to refuse him, but then she saw him put his hand on her waist. Qing asked her, was she trying to contradict him? The girl replied that no. They would be honored if the Tower Master visited their home. Qing said that she was a good girl. Now Yuhan is his home too, so he will bring her here as much as she wants. The girl immediately thanked the master. She realized that this was the first inn. She couldn't be wrong. And if they changed the name and style, that means the hotel changed ownership. Then what happened to her sister? At this time, the Lingjian sect girl was saying that it was just a curse. How dare they keep her locked up? But that's okay. Big Brother will bring their men here soon. That's when they'll dance. They'll make lantern skins out of them. Wei opened the door and told her if she realized that she was the one who looked like the villain now, not them. Plus, she herself had originally asked to be allowed to stay at their inn, so she should be happy they let her in. Wei put food on the table for her and told her to eat a little. Otherwise, she'd die here, too. The girl wondered and wondered what was going on here. Why'd he even choose to feed her? Had he even heard what she was saying here? Wei looked at her face and asked, "What is it?" He had prepared it himself. Would she like to try it? But suddenly Wei remembered that his teacher had once told him that treating prisoners well was a sign of a good soul. Even villains can be kind, how ironic. The girl looked and saw that it was clear from his face that something had been put in his food. A man with such a wicked smile can't wish a man well. And now it turns out he wants her to choose between death by starvation and poison. She got angry and went straight for the food. And she thought that if she had to choose, she would rather die well-fed. She opened her eyes and saw as if she were in another world. She thought poisons could be so delicious. Is she already in heaven? She started crying and said the poison was too strong. She didn't even have time to eat. Suddenly, she heard someone asking Head Lu, "Is this the kidnapped disciple?" She came to her senses a little and realized that she wasn't dead yet. She immediately shouted to her master. Wei looked at them and said how fast they had come. He sighed and felt sorry for his inn. Now he would have to hire laborers again. Rinny asked him, "So he's the owner of this inn?" He saw that it was just as Rinjia said. This guy didn't have a drop of spiritual strength. Rinny told him that he had seriously injured a disciple of the Lingjian sect head and also captured one of his female disciples. Have him bring her back to him now, and he will consider keeping him alive. Wei replied that another stranger had shown up again and started demanding something from him. What a familiar situation. The girl thought, a stranger? Is he the one Master Lu is talking about? There is no such thing. All the masters of these lands know about him. And now it turns out that he'd started this whole thing knowing full well who they were. She remembered that he'd mentioned that it was a familiar situation and that it wasn't the first time he'd done it. And then it must be that the appearance of a mere mortal is just a disguise. But who is he? Renew asked the guy, is he refusing? Don't let him say later that he didn't show mercy, and immediately released an attack right at him. The girl yelled at the foreman to stop. That guy knew about them from the beginning. It's a trap. He's just pretending. Renu was surprised and asked what? He realized that he could no longer stop his attack. She immediately headed for Wei-san. Yui shouted to the others to get out of here soon, but Chinchou saw it flying at her and tried to save her. In a moment, Yui turned around and saw an attack in front of her eyes. But Air managed to come running and stood in front of her and used her sword to repel it. Yui turned around and saw the girl she was looking for earlier, and all the sects were also following her. Earlier, Air had asked the master, would it definitely work? Wei replied that, of course, she could trust him, he was a pro at it, and told her to remember one legendary rule. If she's wearing a mask, no one will ever recognize her. But things turned out differently. Wei told the enemies that they not only destroyed his inn, but also attacked the Iron Gate sect members and civilians. And it turns out, this is what the true face of the Lingjian sect is like. Chinchou walked over to the girls and asked them if they were all right. Rini immediately saw that this girl was dressed as a member of the Wongu Palace. The other one seemed to be from the untouchable Iron Gate sect. He realized it had become too much of a hassle. He'd hoped to kill him quickly, pretending he'd forced him to do it, but he didn't expect it to get so messy. But on top of that, the student managed to shout to him that it was a trap. Did this guy set this up on purpose? Mion looked at all this and said that the place was busier than she expected. And what is the guardian of the Iron Gate sect and the Wongu Palace saint doing here? Also here they have a rich fool, a mediocre fool, and a suspicious boy. She pretended not to know and asked, are these by any chance the same guys who won in this year's Sword Path tournament? She had heard that Arena A was the ultimate massacre this time. It was said that one of the disciples of the famous Wongu Palace had been injured there and still hadn't recovered. She couldn't believe even now that this trio was able to take away the first place from a whole bunch of War King stage masters. The people standing nearby asked what she had just said. The boy replied that he had heard that the winners of the tournament were masters from their city, but he never thought that they would be these three. But the second of them said it was impossible. He knows Wei. Only recently, he was an ordinary worker in the first inn. People asked if anyone knew how he suddenly managed to own this hotel. The guy replied that he had seen him practicing martial arts himself, but he wouldn't call him some kind of master. He was just a rookie. But the other guy said he remembered being bullied a lot because of his weak nature. And if he really could have gotten first place in the tournament, he certainly wouldn't have let others bully him. Mion heard all of this and said that she thought the locals were curious as well. How come a mediocre martial arts novice became so strong overnight? But she certainly had little faith that a person could change so drastically. Wei told her to stop beating around the bush. Sorry to say what she wanted to say. Wei at this point wondered, where did she even come from? He was already tired of reading between the lines. Air came up behind the master and said that she knew who she was. This is the master of the Moon Reflection Tower. She is in charge of intelligence and information gathering. Wei asked her how she knew everyone. Air replied that this woman was very skillful at making up false stories. Usually, she first creates some problems by pretending to be a member of a devilish sect, and then she herself comes to supposedly solve them. And it was because of her antics that people hated the devil sect. Wei understood, so she turned the rest of the people against their devil sect, so they were just slandered. Air realized at this moment that there wasn't an ounce of truth in her words. Her master is a majestic and incredibly talented practitioner. There was no way they would engage in such petty nonsense. And how dare she talk about him like that? And yet some unknown rat has no right to even mention their devilish sect in her conversation, posing as their comrade. Has she lost her fear? But Wei realized that his devil sect was even more sinister. And it turns out that its propaganda only played into their hands. Wei looked at Air and told her to calm down. And she remembered what he told her, right? Air replied to the master that yes, he could take it easy. She realized that if someone asked her about the devil cult, she needed to stick to 3 rules. Knows nothing, has seen nothing, has no connection to them whatsoever. Yui decided to join the conversation and said that she didn't quite understand what they were getting at. Their Iron Gate sect had already verified Brother Wei's identity. 2 years Li Jiwei arrived in Yuhang City and got a job at the first hotel, and his family is clear as well. After his parents died, he was left with only a cousin whose whereabouts are unknown. Wei, hearing such words, was surprised and didn't think she was secretly dripping under him. But why? And suddenly he realized that if all of this was true, he was pretty damn cool right now. The previous owner of the body had picked the perfect frontman. Poor guy who lost his parents leads a lonely, quiet life. A man like that would never be suspected of anything. She even took care of her subordinate when he allotted her a place in his legend. Now he doesn't have to worry about Air being accused of anything. After all, she's just a cousin. And it turned out that this Wei was more far-sighted than he thought. He shouldn't have scolded him then. There's a reason he was called the world's strongest martial artist. Now he admits it. Mion said that she would like to believe the words of the guard of the Great Iron Gate sect, but she wanted to remind them that there were still fugitive followers of the demonic sect hiding in the vicinity of Yuhang City. And she just fears that one of these demons might have taken on the guise of one of the residents and mingled with the crowd. But suddenly a girl entered the conversation and said that he wasn't. She didn't think he was one of those fugitive followers. Shuai recognized her sister and immediately shouted to her. Wei was surprised at this moment and saw that a stealthy character had appeared. The girl said that she had already met him 2 years ago. She could distinguish people's unique auras. And Wei's aura hadn't changed since then. Wei was surprised to hear about auras and thought, are there really those in this world who can distinguish auras? But as he looked at her, he saw something strange that looked like magic. He wondered what it was. Air looked at it and said that it was a celestial maiden. Wei thought, what celestial maiden? Is this the celestial maiden he was thinking of? Air told the master that this was the same celestial maiden he had ordered him to search for. He also added that she should continue to search for her even if they had to be separated for a while. But how could he forget something so important? And then Wei answered that it was because of the poison in his body. It was the only reason he could forget something so important. And he thought that the previous owner of the body must have kept a diary with some important entries. He doesn't know anything about it. Air came up to him and said that perhaps she should do a little checking. Wei was surprised and thought, what is she going to do? She ripped off his clothes and saw that there was no red mole on his chest, meaning that the master had been so meticulous in his disguise that he had even removed things that only she was aware of. Air said that because of their poison, the master not only lost some of his powers, but also lost important memories. And she now understood why the master's behavior had changed so drastically. Perhaps he had lost his memory completely. But if her master had lost his memory, why did he choose to save her? Are their souls so tightly bound? The girl also understood that according to Head, Lu's disciple, he was beaten by a child. And next to him were a rich man and an ordinary guy. So the one who beat up Head, Lu's disciple, was her little sister? Qing walked over to her and put his hand on her shoulder. She immediately sensed that he was furious. It was all because she was trying to make excuses for Wei. Qing called her haughty and asked if she meant she was claiming the guy was innocent of anything. He grabbed the girl by the hair and said that, frankly, he didn't care if he was from the devil's sect or not. She stood next to him and stood up for the other man. Did she completely forget who he was? He must have spoiled her too much lately. I mean, he hadn't tried her once in 2 years. The girl was hurt and apologized to the head. Qing said that it seemed like it was time to teach her some lesson. The girl said nothing and made a sad face. Qing said, what a beautiful scared face she has. It's even gorgeous. The girl told him not to do that. But Qing, an idiot, released her and covered her with his dark aura. Wei felt a familiar feeling at this moment. And this was one of the demonic techniques. She might be very useful, since even the previous owner of the body had ordered to track her down. Besides, her title of Heavenly Maiden sounds very powerful. Wei immediately ordered Air to grab the girl. Air didn't play with him for long and chopped his arm. Mion also said that they were being attacked. She immediately released her claws to fight. Air caught the girl and protected her from the enemy. But in a moment she saw the second enemy attacking her and leaving her on the ground told her to stay out of the way. Shuai ran up to her sister and started to examine her. The girl replied not to worry. She was fine. The girl stood in front of Wei and asked, "This girl is his comrade, right? You should help her. She wouldn't be able to handle 3 opponents at once." Yui stood by her side at this moment and said, "Such strength, it just can't be described in words." But then she realized that her father was right when he said she was too immature for the outside world. But Er did not stay back and continued to fight alone against the enemies. But she saw one of them lying on the ground with a severed arm. Yui saw that this girl was effortlessly fighting 3 powerful masters at once. She also managed to seriously injure one of them. And that's why her father told her not to get involved if something serious started. And if she got involved now, she'd only get in the way. In a moment, Mion picked up the moment and said that this girl was trapped. Er didn't have time to dodge and was injured. Once down on the ground, she calmed down and was slightly wounded. The scars from the battle still remained on her face. You looked at her without her mask and said that it was Hong Xiao, one of the escaped followers of the demonic sect. And now it turns out that Wei, although from the outside their protagonist looked very calm, but he was actually panicking. And Wei thought that now they would 100% burn him. You turned to Wei's brother and said that he was with this girl. Ryuni started laughing and asked the Iron Gate sect guardian, was she now convinced that they were right? They had only pretended to be ordinary do-gooders from the beginning. They're followers of a demonic sect. Then why doesn't she grab those to herself? Or does she mean to say that their Iron Gate sect is conspiring with a demonic sect? You asked him, what kind of nonsense is this? Let him stop slandering their Iron Gate sect. They were the ones who directly fought the demonic sect. Why would they collude with them? Besides, she herself would like to capture this criminal right now. But she's afraid she doesn't have the strength to do it. And her father went to the heads of the 3 major sects this morning. Why'd he leave today? Wei started laughing and asked who was it that they called a follower of the demonic sect. And he remembered that the villain's manual stated that one must continue to deny being a villain until the very end. Wei said that they themselves knew that a demonic sect follower could be identified at a glance. He asked Madame Xia, couldn't she see his demonic aura herself? Wei released an aura at this moment. Yu asked, what demonic aura? Er suddenly turned to the master. Er said that she didn't know what demonic aura he was talking about, but he had once told her that his techniques were not subject to the law of this world. And he also added that since they didn't obey the laws of their world, the local people wouldn't be able to see his true aura. Even though this man reeked of something demonic, she had never seen him among the ranks of a demonic sect. He's definitely not one of them, and he may have somehow managed to steal his technique, but as expected, he couldn't master it properly. At this time, a servant came up to Qing and addressed him. But Qing was in a lot of pain and asked, how dare she cut off her hand? Er turned to the master again. Wei said that it turns out that only he and the readers can see that dark red thing. He thought everyone else could see it too, but they saw the Tathagata's palm technique somehow. Or does she mean to say that the Buddha techniques belong to this world, but the demonic ones do not? Has this world gone crazy or what, Wei thought? But to others, a battle with the strongest martial arts master of the demonic sect would look like an ordinary theatrical production without any special effects. Wei realized that he had already been reborn as the strongest martial artist, but he had also been given the ability to see demonic auras. But why is it that at the most crucial moment things always don't go the way he wanted them to? But suddenly something occurred to him. He thought, didn't the celestial maiden say that she could see aura? But in reality, the maiden can't see anything either. And now he'll have to say goodbye to a quiet life, even though he can't use his full strength because of Wongu's poison. But he thinks even 20 will be enough to get out of this trap. He'll just bring Shuai and his beautiful sister with him and find some other place to start over. Wei calmed down and said enough of these games. And opening his hands, he decided he was ready to confess. Suddenly, someone in the back said for everyone to look. He really is from the demonic sect. Wei turned around and asked why she was yelling. Couldn't she wait for him to introduce himself? But Chinchou simply told Wei that she was behind him. Wei immediately felt some kind of aura felt behind him. Qing looked at them and said that they were all vile and stupid people. He asked how dare she take away his hand? Wei was very happy when he saw this, because it was a very pleasant turn of events for him. He immediately changed his mind about confessing. Renew looked at the other head and realized he was mad, and here he was a real idiot. Renew decided to act differently and attacked Qin from behind so he wouldn't give the others away. The people standing in that place started to panic and shouted that it was indeed a demonic sect follower. Er asked the master, what will they do? The Lingjian sect is considered righteous, so for the sake of their head's reputation, they will do everything they can to kill this idiot and prove their non-involvement. Wei laughed and replied that he felt like their head understood what was going on here. If they let him kill this madman so easily, they would let the opportunity to take advantage of it pass. Wei told Er to remember that from now on, they were righteous people who had volunteered to destroy the remaining followers of the demonic sect. The chapter met with the old man of the other sect. The old man said that he didn't think Sheng had already met Brother Wei at the Sword Path tournament. It was like finding a needle in a haystack. He didn't expect it. In fact, he was wondering how he would find this guy after the tournament was over. The old man asked Head Sheng, is he saying that Brother Wei has opened his own inn? It turns out that he wants to continue his journey alone. The old man sighed and said he knew it. Now I can see why he refused his offer. Sheng said that he thinks Brother Wei just doesn't want anyone to restrict his freedom. He respects him for taking his own path and opening a beautiful inn. The old man said that yes, having one's own way was certainly a good thing, but being such a master, he would sooner or later become someone else's target. It hasn't been long since he won the tournament, and already the Lingjian sect has shown up. He himself knows that the most important thing in Jianghu is to have allies. Sheng said that if they are talking about Brother Wei, he would rather choose to become someone else's target than be confined within the four walls of some sect. He believes that if the old man is strong enough, there is no need for allies. The old man replied that it didn't matter. He was already here anyway. Isn't this the inn that Head Sheng was talking about? Sheng replied that yes, the Lingjian sect had brought quite a few followers. But opening his eyes, he saw that there was a battle going on. All the guys were fighting the enemies and trying to kill the demonic sect follower. Sheng saw all this and thought at once, what's even going on here? You also fought the enemies and asked them what they were doing? They're civilians. And why the hell did the Lingjian sect start attacking ordinary mortals? The warrior answered her that the head's orders were to tie them all up. But suddenly a second enemy came at her with his sword. But Sheng also noticed all this and came up and used a fireball that exploded and destroyed the enemies his daughter was fighting. He was very happy to see her father, but Qinshu had told her that there was something wrong with these people. They look like they're being controlled by someone, right? Wei said to her, as if they were conscious, but at the same time their bodies were not obeying them. Their legs are weak, their faces are pale blue, and they move as if they were walking corpses instead of people. And in fact, these are signs of not having a soul. Qinshu was surprised and asked what. Wei replied that as the world's strongest martial artist, he had tried countless cultivation methods. And such people with missing souls are the waste products that arise due to the cultivation of his techniques. Once they grasp the practitioner of that technique himself, all those people will return to normal. Qinshu asked the master how he knew all this. Wei looked at her and replied that it's a secret. He knows because he owns the original of this technique, but he didn't tell her that. Suddenly the old man showed up and said it's good to be young. They're all so energetic. And it turns out the kid's cousin is here, too. Her skills are as good as ever. Sheng asked with surprise, Wei's cousin? The old man asked him, doesn't he know this white-haired girl? Sheng thought, what other white-haired girl? He took a closer look and realized it was one of Wei's closest followers. The old man decided to help the guys, and after drinking wine, he turned into a huge man and told the others to let the old man have fun. Wei saw that the old man from the wooden sect was also here. Heaven had not turned its back on him yet. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We need to dispel all suspicion in his direction, and it's time for him to clear their good name from the others with a look. Wei suddenly turned to Shuai. But the old man from Wudong fought the strongest at the moment of impact asked, what does the old man's fist taste like? Now they would know how to go against old man Feng. He immediately flew towards Rennie and punched him with his fist. Rennie was surprised and didn't even have time to dodge. But then he realized that this old man dared to hit him. But even his grandmother had never hit him in the face. Rennie sent the moment to hell and realized that he had already tarnished his reputation. And now he didn't give a damn about the civilians and would kill every last one of them. But suddenly he tried to show all his strength, but he suddenly thought why he couldn't release his chi. Not only to release, why did it feel like his inner chi was being sucked out of him? But Shui was above him at this time, and slowly blocked all of his techniques and prevented him from engaging in battle. He used the great Star absorption method. A beautiful girl named De Piaoyang shouted to her mother and father that she had come home. Her name perfectly reflected her beauty. She was so beautiful that she could be called the main character from the pages of a book. Suddenly passers-by were already saying that she was poor and what would happen to their daughters now. The guy replied that it was fine. Old man Zhao would definitely take care of them since their parents had worked for him for so many years. Old man Zhao had already made arrangements at this time and told the Lord that here she came. Isn't his daughter beautiful? He is sure that she will be to his liking. The gentleman replied that she was indeed graceful and beautiful. He surprised him very much. Piaoyang asked Uncle Zhao at once, where her mother and father? After a month, she was used to being sold to a widely placed man. In the evening, a servant came to them and told the master that here was his tea. The master tasted it and said it didn't taste good today. Is she new? The servant replied that she had never made such teas before and apologized to the master. Master told her that he wouldn't scold her for it. Let her not be afraid. He grabbed her face and decided to take a closer look. Thereupon the master asked the beauty, why is she frozen? Let her rather put it on. Piaoyan turned to the Lord and decided to start talking about that girl. The Lord said she was just a useless toy. Did she really have time to get attached to her? But since she was so worried about her, she should take a look at how she was. Old man Zhao was not deceived. The beauty is not only beautiful, but also very kind. But going outside, the master asked Piaoyan why she was silent. The girl had never seen such a thing in her life and was frightened. The girl who brought the tea was completely exhausted and begged them for help, and she ended up dying on the couch. Piaoyan was very frightened and even almost fainted. The master told her not to be afraid. She was special, and he would not do that to her. And from now on, let her call him master. Piaoyang accepted all his conditions and replied to the master that she understood everything. Qing realized that it would be a waste to use such a beauty with a perfect body only once. He'd better enjoy her properly when he breaks through to the next stage. And he was sure that his demonic cultivation technique would become even more effective with her. Then he could finally turn his Green Mountain sect into the strongest sect in the world. Qing shouted at them that he was the head of the Green Mountain sect. How dare he go against him? How will he get out of these ropes? Not even ashes will be left of him. Wei replied that yes, he was very strong and great, and he told Air to silence him. But things didn't go the way he wanted, and Wei saw his face covered in blood. He told Air that he hadn't asked her to kill him. Air replied that the master used to say when he wanted her to kill someone. She apologizes, she misunderstood him. Rennie said that he was telling them honestly, he didn't know anything about it. If he knew that Qing was one of the followers of the demonic sect, there was no way he would have messed with him. But he would personally deal with him. Mian asked him, did he think everyone would just take it and believe him? Here only she didn't know anything. Yes, idiot. Rennie asked her, how was he supposed to know it would turn out like this? She was the smartest, so she'd have to think of something. Mian replied that she didn't have an ounce of spiritual power left in her. What could she think of in such a situation? Besides, like she said, she didn't know that the two of them were somehow related to the demonic sect. Wei walked over to Brother Xia and said that he himself should know that it was impossible to purify himself from demonic qi, so they themselves would have to kill him sooner or later. Wei realized that today was the first time he had witnessed a human being killed, but he shouldn't show his excitement. It's not easy being the head of a demonic sect. Sheng said that yes, he understands everything. Brother Wei doesn't have to worry about it. He can go rest. They will take care of things here. Wei rejoiced, for now they had witnessed Air kill one of their cult followers with her own hand. That should have taken suspicion away from her at least a little. Wei went on with his story and wanted to talk about air. But then he came to his senses and asked, "Can he go?" You asked her father afterward. Why did he stop her? Brother Wei knows too much about the demonic sect. They should question him about it. He might turn out to be one of them. Sheng replied to you that she should work on her impatient nature. Does she really think Brother Wei might have something to do with the demonic sect? You replied that he is close to Su, the right hand of the head of the demonic sect. Sheng said that she doesn't see the whole picture, and that's why they can't jump to conclusions. Let her think to herself, if Brother Wei really was one of the followers of the demonic sect, would he openly carry Sei around with him? Does she happen to find it strange that one of the strongest followers of the demonic sect had started following Brother Wei and almost completely obeyed him? She herself knows how powerful Brother Wei is. It's not that hard to believe that he used some sort of technique to take control of her. And now he thinks that Wei knows so much about the demonic sect precisely because he questioned this Hong Xiu properly himself. Sheng said that in that case, all they had to do was wait and not cause unnecessary trouble for Brother Wei. When the time comes, he will tell them everything himself. You replied, and that makes sense. You said that Brother Wei recently mentioned some demonic aura. Does Father know anything about it? Sheng asked with surprise, demonic aura? What is that? But Old Man Feng walked over and said that for now, we should forget about this demonic aura and demonic sect. And he's not interested. It's time to talk about something more important. And it looks like this guy's a lot simpler than he thought. Feng told the chapter that he was the one who gave him the technique that perfectly matched his 9 bends hard defense technique. Was he right? Sheng told him to leave. And since he thinks Brother Wei is so easy, let him go and negotiate with him himself. He really treasures Brother Wei's priceless gift, so don't even let him dream about it. Feng said to Sheng's head how stingy he was. For that matter, he would ask him that himself. He thinks that the techniques this guy has are much more powerful than that chick's soul-eating techniques. He's not even sure if anyone else has those techniques. Chinchi stopped the elder and asked, did he just mention the soul-devouring technique? Suddenly, after a hard day, began to shout, asking, Shuai is this girl? He asked, is he definitely the same Shuai? Are they mocking him? Tell them to bring back his boy immediately. Shuai told her sister that Master had recently fallen off a cliff and had lost his memory a little, so he didn't remember that she was a girl. It is uncomfortable to practice in a skirt. Can she change? Piaoyang replied that he must have been in a lot of pain. Wei considered it an attack of dazzling beauty. He wiped off the blood and said that it was nothing special, it was just a fall. He thought to himself, what a hard fate this beauty had. She could probably have appeared in a romantic comedy as the main character, and here she was. But suddenly, he thought hard, and in his mind, something didn't add up. The original owner of the body was looking for this celestial maiden, but he knew that the one he was looking for was Shuai's sister. Could it be that he didn't recognize her? Wei asked, maybe she alone wasn't enough? He wanted to assemble a tricolor team of celestial maidens? Suddenly, Chinchou came in and said that Brother Wei was here. She was just looking for him. After questioning him, they found out that the Lingjian sect and the Green Mountain sect colluded with the demonic sect and secretly cultivated demonic techniques. And sect elder Yuden has already taken Rennie away. Now his fate will be decided by the 3 great sections. And Mion didn't seem to know about the collusion of the other sects, so for now, the Iron Gate sect would decide her fate. And his hotel celebrity has now skyrocketed. She's the talk of the town. And let the girl drink this. Piaoyang asked, what is it? Chinchi replied that Uncle Xia had discovered parasites in Gongzi Qing's sect. This species feeds on the blood and flesh of women, and when in proximity to a parasite host, it helps to suck the yin energy out of the woman and convert it into the yang energy of the host. And the mother parasite died with Gongzi, so the babies have become harmless, but it would still be better if they extracted them. When asked, are the Wongu palace vermin so easy to get? They must have caused a lot of people to suffer because of them. And she is sure that these parasites can be obtained thanks to a single bowl of soup? Wei thought that apparently this guy from the Green Mountain sect was much closer to the Wongu palace than the previous owner of the body. Perhaps this would help him get rid of the parasite in his body. Chinchou replied, "How would she know? It was probably sold to him by the head of the palace who cared more about the profit than the consequences." Wei walked over to the bowl and started dipping his finger and tasting it too. Chinchou asked, did he question her skills? Let him drink the soup, or else she will take it away. Wei listened to her and immediately picked up the bowl of soup, opened his big mouth, and drank it all. Wei started laughing and said that he was now the strongest martial artist in the world. Will break the limiting seal. He had high hopes, but at the end, he said that his strength had not returned. Chinchou asked him what was wrong with him. She brought it to her, not him, and there are no parasites in his body. Why did he even drink it? Wei asked why her soup had no effect. Chinchou asked, did he expect something else? But he had already drank it, so it couldn't be helped. She would check on him. Chinchou was glad that she had gotten such a rare opportunity. She should take advantage of it. Wei was surprised and said it wasn't scary at all. You could have just asked her to check his body from the beginning. It's just that he's afraid of having worms inside him. That's disgusting. He rejoiced that at last his cursed parasite that was holding back his powers would be destroyed. And no longer will he have to pretend to be an ordinary innkeeper. He is simply showing his true power and will once again stand at the head of this world. Chinchou said that she told him that there were no parasites in him. He was perfectly healthy. Wei was surprised and asked, is she sure about that? The girl asked why he looked so disappointed. Shuai came in and told her sister that she had prepared another bowl. Chinchou told the guy, advising him to get rid of his weird fetish for parasites in his body. It's dangerous. Chinchou actually realized that there were no parasites in him. It was true. However, right now one did appear. Wei went to his room and lay on the couch and talked about how this is so. Why things weren't going the way he wanted them to. Air told him not to be discouraged. He's too majestic to get discouraged over such a trifle. Wei asked, how can he not be discouraged when the Holy Maiden of Wongu Palace says that there is not a single parasite in his body? And if there were no parasites in his body, then why couldn't he use his powers? Maybe there was never any seal of restraint. Maybe he just misunderstood. Air had told the master that his power was practically immense. How could some common parasite seal it? The fact that even the Holy Maiden of the Wongu Palace couldn't detect it meant that this matter wasn't as simple as it seemed. Wei replied, that's exactly right. She is absolutely right. Wei said that since even the Holy Maiden couldn't, he would have to find a way to get close to the head of the Wongu Palace. He thought that since the Holy Maiden couldn't detect it, then this parasite was really unusual. They used the strongest parasite against the strongest master. Chinchou went to a secluded place and used her bug to talk about what Wei was talking about there. She realizes that it's not nice to peek like this, but it's all for the sake of following the head's orders. Eric told the master that she understood him and let him wait a moment. Wei replied yes. Let him hurry up. Chinchou thought that if the Wooding sect elder's words were to be believed, Meng Qinyu had attacked Li Wei first. And when Li Wei stopped resisting, Meng Qinyu's soul-devouring technique turned against her herself. This guy is, of course, incredibly tough. Not only did he defeat Qinyu with her own technique, but he was also able to somehow subdue the demon sect head's right hand. Suddenly, Chinchou saw that someone had disappeared and asked, where did that white-haired girl go? And what is Wei doing there? Wei at this time picked up the plaque and said that was right. The world's strongest master should have his own symbol. From now on, this talisman would testify that the person was from him, Li Ziwei, but the beetle standing next to it said, what an ugly talisman it was. Er suddenly walked in and told Master that she was back, and immediately asked, is this the demonic sect's talisman? Wei replied that they could no longer use the demonic sect's talisman, so he tweaked it a bit. Let her remember that from now on, this talisman will be called the Talisman of Wei's Sacred Flame. Er took it and said that she understood. She immediately saw that her master was attentive. The character Wei, after all, not only meant the master's nickname, but also alluded to the great first demon lord. And her master is so wise that he put a double meaning into the name of this talisman. Eric told the master that she had brought what he had asked for. Would that be enough, she asked. Wei took the papers and replied that it would. And now that their hotel has gained fame, popularizing their teachings is on the agenda. Wei opened the papers and said he would try to sketch a couple. And what was the point of learning techniques with no apparent special effects when the rest of the world was demonstrating such flashy and cool techniques? He started writing and saying it was better. His techniques would not only be powerful, but they would look grand. He turned to the past owner of the body in the process and said that he knew his techniques were the strongest in the world. But he should realize that cool effects are also very important. So he wouldn't need his techniques for now. Chinchou was watching and said that's so fast. But what is he doing there? The girl said to take a closer look, and slowly ordered the beetle to get on the paper and show me. Chinchou saw it and started asking, what is this even? Is this some kind of technique? Some kind of martial art that can only be practiced by pumped-up men with a bare torso? But at that moment, it ended before her eyes. Wei saw the bug and finished it off with his huge hands. Chinchou saw the same thing and thought she had been exposed. Wei asked Air what was wrong. Air replied to the master that he was working so hard. His shoulders must be completely slack. Could she massage them for him? Wei immediately agreed. Air told the master that the head of Wongu Palace has a very mysterious personality. They don't have much information about her. Since he wants to meet her, she will go there tomorrow and scout it out beforehand. She would find information for them that he could use when he met with the head of the Wongu Palace. Wei replied to her that she was so caring, and he realized that she was a reliable subordinate, and he thanked the former owner of the body for such a gift. Air immediately went and told the master to take care while she wasn't here. Wei replied not to worry about it. She hadn't forgotten who he was, had she? And besides, who would kidnap him from his own home? At this time, there was a cat in the tree who might have been watching him. The next day, Wu Jin shouted at everyone to let him go to the guards. And it's very urgent. Sheng suddenly got the information and asked with surprise, Brother Wei is missing? The demonic sect follower is also gone? Yui replied that he disappeared at a time like this. Perhaps he went into hiding, afraid of being exposed. Sheng thought for a moment and said that they wouldn't jump to conclusions. He asked the guys, when did they find out that Brother Wei was missing? Maybe he just decided to take a walk. Wu Jin replied that naturally, he had rushed here as soon as he discovered that he was missing. Piaoyang said that yesterday at noon, she and Wei had lunch together. He didn't mention that he was going somewhere. In addition, he offered to cultivate together the next day. Suddenly, Wu Jin remembered and said that they found in his room. Sheng asked with surprise, a spider? And some unfinished writing? He saw that Brother Wei's drawings were indeed exquisite, but the clothes of the men here were unnecessarily revealing. Chinchou said that this spider was hers. She decided to secretly observe him, and he soon discovered it. Wu Jin asked her how dare she spy on his master. Chinchou replied, as for where he was now, she probably already knew that. At this time, Wei was in a strange place and with his eyes closed. Coming to his senses, he jumped up and opening his eyes, said where he was even. Suddenly someone came up and replied that he was already awake, and they would soon report to the head of the department. The girl said that although he was a little thin, his skin was pale and his face was nice. The other girl said he was just her type. The first girl decided to take a different course of action and said she thought she was getting horny. He's perfectly fine with it, though. Wei took a closer look at them and started shouting, saying that they were legendary beastmen with cat ears. Had he really been transported to another world again? A servant came to the lady and asked if she would like to meet the head first. Chinchou replied that she would do it later. The servant told the mistress that if she didn't visit the head first, she would get angry. Besides, this guy is just another prisoner. Why should she visit him personally? Chinchou replied that she would apologize to her later. Now is not the time for that. The servant said okay, but she was saying it for her own good. The servant realized that even though she was the holy maiden of their palace, she was really nothing. What made her think she could behave like that? Wei kept lying there wondering what this place was. He thought that he had imagined it. Or did he really see beastmen? He was once again transported to another world. But suddenly, he looked up and saw Chinchou in front of him. He asked her what was even going on here. Chinchou told the servant that she could go. She wants to talk to him in private. The servant replied to the mistress to be careful. If he ran away, the punishment would be severe. Chinchou said that this is the dungeon of Wongu Palace. Criminals are kept here. Wei asked with surprise, dungeon? What is he doing here? Wei has accepted that the world's strongest martial arts master has been kidnapped. Will the plot develop in such a formulaic way? And how did he get kidnapped in the first place? Why doesn't he remember anything about it? Wei suddenly turned to Madame and remembered Air saying yesterday that she would go on a scouting mission. Had she really been captured? Chinchou didn't speak to him further and immediately used her magic powers against him. Wei Yu was in a lot of pain. He couldn't stand it and spat out the bug that had entered his body. Wei asked what the hell is this stuff? Chinchou replied that it's a suggestion parasite. It causes the host to hallucinate. Taking them out like this directly is a bit unpleasant, but now is not the time to think about it. She asked him if he had met anyone from Wongu's palace this morning. She realized that not only had the suggestion parasite been placed in it, but it had been brought straight to the palace. Not only had a suggestion parasite been placed in it, but it had been dragged straight to the palace. It was probably an order from the head, and it looked like Li Ziwei had seriously injured Meng Qinyu. But she wasn't supposed to know about it yet. So why'd she act up? Wei replied that no, he had just gone to breakfast. He now realized that they had slipped a parasite into him, and he hadn't even noticed it. There are some truly scary people living in the Wongu Palace. Suddenly, the servant came again and addressed the lady. She said that the head wished to see this fellow, and her too. The head met with her and asked Chinchou why she didn't stop by after her return. She had only been out of the palace for a few days and thought that she was allowed to run amok. Wei suddenly looked over and saw that this cat looked familiar to him. Wei started screaming and said he remembered. This particular cat jumped on his windowsill today, and he decided to pet it. Wei asked her how dare she take advantage of his love of kitties. She had caused him to let his guard down, and she had managed to send him away. What a despicable thing to do. Chinchou told him that everyone knows not to pet stray cats. Wei asked her, is she kidding? How can you resist these cute creatures? They're just begging to be petted. Chinchou asked Madame, why did she suddenly decide to invite Wei here? He is a good friend of the Iron Gate sect. Uncle Xia is already looking for him. The head replied to her that she was the one asking the questions here. Did she forget what she was ordered to do? Chinchou said that, of course, she hadn't forgotten. Chinchou suddenly came to her senses and asked the head, was she really following her? The head replied that since she was supposed to be watching this guy, why wouldn't she be watching him? Wei asked her if she was really spying on him. Chinchou replied to let her explain. The head said that apparently there was really something about him since he was able to fool Chinchou so much that she even dared to disobey her order. And she's even heard he's pretty strong, but that won't save him in any way. Does he see that even the god himself would have to pay for harming a disciple of the Wongu Palace? Wei thought and said he warned the last person who had threatened him with retribution for harming his student like this was now imprisoned in a dungeon. The head said, amused, he has the nerve to put her on par with this fool. And then the conversation is over. The head, walking away, thought, why all this trouble? Power or being high-ranked wouldn't be able to save him from the memory reading technique. Why complicate things when you can look directly? Wei asked her, so why resort to such a drastic method right away? Couldn't they talk first? The head realized that if there was truly something special about him, she would subdue him and he would become part of the power of the Wongu Palace. And if not, he would simply dissolve it into a healing pill and give it to Qinyu as revenge for her injury. She hadn't really expected it to go so smoothly. Good. Now she would see what his secret was. In a moment, she opened her eyes and saw that she was on the edge. She was very frightened and did not realize what it was. But then she realized she was on an attraction. She immediately asked what was even going on here. The head thought at that moment, what is this? She had never seen outfits like this before. Where's she even located? Suddenly, the merry-go-round began to creak. She immediately began to panic and asked what was that sound? Where are they moving to? The chapter had different feelings and thought it was some new torture tool. People said it was fun, and they decided to go again. The chapter was surprised that they were having fun, and thought, what was fun about it? This thing had nothing to do with the word fun. People were saying they needed to ride somewhere else. The head was surprised, and she felt her body move the way it had in his memories. Soon she was back on the rides, and she didn't understand why her body wasn't obeying her. But it was worse than that, because she began to vomit. The head eventually said that she couldn't anymore. If she falls from here, she will definitely die, and she can't go on. She thought that if she forcibly squandered his memories, she might get the side effects of his technique right away. But if she stayed here, she would definitely die. But she didn't hold back long and ordered that there was a rewind. She got to another place and asked, "What the hell is that?" And everybody's dressed so weird. But suddenly one of the singers was telling all the people to have a blast at the Halloween party. The head thought, is this really the heavenly palace of the second heaven from the legends? Suddenly, someone placed a hand on her shoulder and said hello to her. The strange man turned to her and asked if she could take a picture of them. The head was greatly surprised at such a moment. The servants in the real world gathered around her and asked the head what had happened to her. The servant said to hurry up and call someone. The head fainted. She went up to Wei and asked what he had done to their head. Wei sensed that this was another setup. It's not like he didn't do anything. Chinchou looked at the head and saw that she had fainted. What had happened? Wei told the elder that he didn't do anything. Chinchou was wondering at this time. What was it that the head had seen? The servants sent him back behind bars. Wei asked what was wrong with him. They had seen for themselves that he was sitting tied up. How could he do anything to her? In fact, she attacked him. He didn't even move. The servant told him not to think, that they were so stupid. They had already heard that he also supposedly did nothing when he ran into Miss Chinyu. However, she is now in a serious condition. She doesn't know what trick he pulled, but if anything happens to their head, she'll immediately drop him into the worm cave. Wei asked her what was wrong with her logic. If he was able to wound even his head, why was she so sure that he would be restrained by these iron bars? Wei is still counting on the saint to get that rotten parasite out of him. If she doesn't, he'll never be able to awaken his powers. Wei turned to the holy maiden and told her to at least tell them. He didn't do anything to their head. She saw it all herself. He doesn't know what's wrong with her either. Chinchou apologized and replied that there was nothing else she could do to help him. Wei asked why. She is their holy maiden after all. Chinchou asked him, can't he see it himself? Her status as a holy maiden is just an empty sound to them. The head just pushes her around as he wants. She has absolutely no interest in her opinion. Wei asked, does this thing she gave him even work? Chinchou replied that no, it was useless. Wei said, which meant that all this time she was just pretending. And then he started to get angry and thought, what should he do now? Wei calmed down and realized he couldn't do anything anyway, so he would just go to sleep and hope that Er still managed to get him out of here in time. But at this very moment, Er was busy with her mission. The elder immediately shouted to the servants to bring the healer quickly, and she would light the incense. And now Er thought it was all part of her master's plan. She thought her master was stronger now than ever before. Er remembered that in the past, even a master wouldn't have dared to go against the head of the Wongu palace so directly. But now the master had not only come face to face with this woman, but had severely wounded her without much effort. She suddenly walked into the head's room at night. She thought that this insolent wretch had dared to attack her master. She wanted to slaughter her right here. But since the master didn't kill her right away, she could still be useful to him. He'll leave it at that for now. And this case is related to the poisonous creature inside the master's body, so she can't let him down. She started looking for clues and picked up an ordinary book. She started throwing everything in different directions and thought, why are there only novels here? And there's not a single entry here about parasites or the secrets of Wongu's palace. And is that woman in her room not at all attending to the affairs of her palace, or what? Suddenly she looked down and saw that there was a box of some kind standing there. She immediately picked it up and said, what an interesting box. And there is definitely something useful hidden here. Suddenly the head came to her senses and started saying that she felt so bad and thought she was dead. As she lifted herself up, she opened her eyes and saw in front of her a carousel ride, and everything was pink. The chapter again saw everything as a flashback and said that there was clearly something wrong with this guy. He was testing torture implements for fun besides. There were so many immortal gods hanging around him. But what were those jokes that appeared at the very end? Were they demons that had crawled out of the afterlife? Suddenly, she remembered and said that she thought she had read about it in some of her books. But she saw that her books were all scattered. She thought, why aren't her books in their proper places? They're getting sloppier and sloppier. At this time, Air was behind her and was holding a box that she thought was very strange. Air was surprised in the moment that she hadn't noticed anything. Suddenly, the head said what she had found. Suddenly, the doors opened, and the elder told the lady that she was awake. And the healer said she had gone into shock and just prescribed her sedative herbs. The head got really angry and immediately asked, "Where is he?" The older one asked the guy who made her pass out. She said that after what happened, she immediately placed him back in the dungeon. The head was surprised and asked what, and immediately ordered her to let him out of there quickly and receive him as a distinguished guest. But suddenly she decided that she would do it all herself. Chinchio was telling Wei at this time that he'd better figure out a way to escape from here soon. Wei replied that if he ran away, he would immediately admit his guilt. Besides, she already knows where he lives, so it's useless to run away. Chinchio asked him, can't he just move somewhere else? Doesn't he know what kind of head has a bad temper? She is not going to deal with whether he is at fault or not. And when she wakes up, she might actually throw him into the cave of worms. Wei said, how cruel. But Wei was confident in his strength, so they would see who would eat who in this cave. Suddenly, they heard the elder yelling at the lady not to run. She had just woken up. An hour later, they were already seated at the table, and Wei said that he had told him it was all just a misunderstanding. The head replied that yes, and she apologizes for making this whole mess. Wei asked her how her student was doing. He was still guilty of not clarifying who she was to begin with. The head replied that you shouldn't say that. It was a tournament after all. What was the point of going to a tournament if everyone would succumb to him knowing where he was coming from? Chinchio heard all this and thought, what's going on here? The head turned to her and asked why she was still here. Let her not interfere with her and Owner Lee's conversation. Chinchio walked out of the room and didn't understand what had just happened. And she thought, how did everything come to this? The head was very kind to Owner Lee and told him to try the delicious tea and even poured it herself. Wei told the chapter that she didn't need to be so polite to him and was surprised that she had changed so drastically in her behavior that he was even a little scared. The head also thought hard and hoped he didn't hold a grudge against her for what he had done. But if the book description is to be believed, this man is one of the immortals of the legendary Heavenly Palace. If he is still angry, then she and the entire Wongu Palace will be the end. Suddenly, while pouring tea, she became very frightened and spilled some on the table. She started to bow and say that her behavior was unacceptable and asked him to forgive her. The head said directly that she already knew who he was. Besides, Chinchio had already told her that he was a very capable master, and if he wishes to punish her, so be it. Wongu Palace will do anything to make it up to him. Wei asked her with surprise, does she know who he is? He thought at once, did she really realize that he is the lord of the demonic sect? Or does she just want to poison him once again?